This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson with you, along with the CTO, Michael Remis. We've got a great show for you as we count down the hours to Blue Bombers and CFL kickoff tomorrow at IG Field. We're going to welcome in one of the brightest minds covering the Canadian Football League anywhere in the country. Marshall Ferguson is going to join us in about 15 or 20 minutes. We'll break down his thoughts on what we know, what we don't know, and the uncertainty heading into kickoff with no preseason and such a long layoff for the 3-down game. We'll also talk some hockey. Joe Yerdon is in Buffalo, and Joe's going to join us a little later on for a little update on the Jack Eichel situation and some more talk about the NFL offseason. As always, we are brought to you by our great family of sponsors, including Paramount Services Limited, Royal Sports, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Breezy Bend Country Club, Assiniboia Downs, Coolbet Canada, and Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. All right, let's get right to it and welcome in Michael Remis to the program. Remo, what's going on? Now, you weren't at the ball game last night. You had your own. Yeah. I'll be honest. Sometimes I get, I just see if it's sunny outside or not. It didn't look particularly hot yesterday. I was inside doing the show, whatnot, got outside. Oh, what a steamy night for some baseball, either watching it or playing it.
Yeah, I took, you sent me a nice picture. I'll pull it up right now. Here it is on our Instagram. So if you're not following us on Instagram, there we are. Sports Talk WPG. What's up, everyone in the YouTube chat? Looks like a great night. I saw you had some food. You sent me some pictures. We did have, oh no, not that one. Oh, yeah, there you are. There's your view. Great view at Shaw Park. Looked like a great time. There you are, getting some mini donuts as well. So I had to show everyone, but yeah, well, I mean, it's a big week for sports. You said it. We had Manitoba Derby, the Goldeyes, and now we're just counting down to the Bombers. So nice that you're taking it all. And as I was not able to, had my own baseball game, but I did hit a BP patio after, and I think BP is the best place in the city to go with your team after a game.
No, it is. Which one did you hit, Taylor or
BP Polo? And they had extended patio there.
Nice.
Great weather. Team pitcher, got a couple Zaz, sampled a bunch of different ones. So definitely had a great time there.
Now, it's safe to say that I've been out quite a bit more than you over the last few months. What was it like getting back out into public with buddies and having a few beers and a pizza again? Did you remember how that all works?
Okay. I went out. Thankfully, I did a pre-test last week. I went for dinner with my wife. It was like our first night out together in over like a year and a half. And we sat down at a table house, and they didn't give us a menu. They just slapped a QR code on the table. I was like, what the hell is this? And that one restaurant had like this new fancy debit machine. I was like, oh, geez, I really haven't been out for a long time. But yeah, I think I'll be heading out a lot more lately. Now we got, I got to hit a Goldeyes game, possibly Bombers. I think my wife and I are making plans for a Valor game in September. So things are happening on the sporting front.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know there's some people that are still freaked out about the virus. And if you are, I mean, obviously you got to make your own decisions. But if you're fully vaccinated, I encourage you to get out and reintroduce yourself to our local teams, our local sports venues. I went to the Valor game the first day, and that was a very small crowd because it was a 9:00 game on a Wednesday night. They had just sort of been able to open it up. A lot of people didn't quite have their QR codes or whatever their card is yet. But it was amazing just to get out to the park, be back at IG Field, and watch our soccer team that has been just playing so well this season. We know, and I've been talking about it for months, the excitement that I think everyone in this community is feeling about the game tomorrow night, with the Bombers finally being able to raise that Grey Cup banner and pack an IG Field. But I was very similarly excited for the Goldeyes. And, you know, the Goldeyes have a different place in maybe Winnipeg's sports landscape, but they do have an incredibly loyal group of fans. And to be honest with you, even if people aren't following the team and their ins and outs daily on the daily throughout the year, the experience of going to Shaw Park and watching a Goldeyes game is right up there with any of them. I mean, certainly when it comes to the bang for the buck, it's a cheaper ticket, phenomenal concessions, and just a great atmosphere. And that atmosphere was great last night. I had people asking me about the crowd. I would say it was, I mean, when you actually look at all of the seats, I mean, probably into 60% full sort of thing. And it was a great crowd. I mean, tell you what, I don't know whether it's been watching the Olympics, and I've been commenting on how all the good-looking people are Olympic athletes. Well, a lot of them were actually at the game last night too. So, listen, it was just great to be back there. And Remis, I know you wanted to know, you know, going to the Goldeyes game, as much as it is important that, you know, you enjoy the ball game itself, it's as much about being at the ballpark and sampling everything that is there. You did mention I did get in on the mini donuts last night. I also had a Ukrainian platter of pierogies and kubasov from Mr. Pierogi, which was great. But I can't give you a report. The Goldie Dogs are back. Bodego's is back with the noodle boxes. Little Pizza Heaven is back in the building, and I believe they're in the Bomber Stadium as well coming in. You'll see that coming up on Thursday. Obviously, Goldie's Grill there, mini donuts, pretzel maker, the pierogi, all there. Craft beer corner was packed. It was hopping, a great crowd. I mean, the Goldeyes, I'm not sure if they took a bunch of pictures, but that's exactly the crowd that they're looking to attract to games. It was great to see. The one thing that is not open as of yet is the Taco Time. And I'm not sure what the future of Taco Time is, whether they'll be back next year. There you have it. There's the number 2 combo right there. I should send an invoice for another one of these to Mr. Pierogi. But yes, if you go that's way down in the left field line, worth the trip if you're depending on where you're sitting. And all in all, man, it was just a great night to be at the ballpark. And I'll tell you what, the Goldeyes look good, just hitting the cover off the ball. I'm interested to see how successful they are at home over the next little while, Remis, because we have heard that there's some fill-in players coming north of the border because they don't have their papers or proof of vaccination. And that could be great for the Goldeyes that are playing 10 or 19 or 20 games at home over this final month.
Big throwdown last night. So I did read an article that said, was Sioux City scrambling to find guys who are eligible to travel across the border and take part in this. So I agree. Could be interesting. You know, maybe we'll find some books that can take bets on American Association baseball. I don't know. Do they have American Association gambling?
Well, our buddy Dustin Pernitsky, the minute when that article came out, it was like desperately searching for American Association lines. I don't think you'll see any bookmakers taking books on that, bets on that. But that's just part of the run. Unfortunately, at that level, you don't get it. We could make some money on it though. Take the over and take the Goldeyes run line every game for the next little while. Can tell you that the Fish are here for a 6-game homestand. They're playing again tonight and then tomorrow. If you've got the day off and you want to get back into your the sports fan run of things, think about a noon start at Shaw Park. Maybe you can have those pierogies and kubaslaw, a dog or two, get in you, and a nice little pregame heading into the Bomber game tomorrow night. I saw Leighton Janis was at the game last night. Leighton, great to see you. And I did see a few other folks that popped by and say hi. So it was nice to see everyone that was there. The one thing that I will tell you, and I think this is important for everyone to know, Reem, as we get ready for tomorrow's game, is that this is not like just going to the game before and, popping in a quick search and then you're in. There's a lot more to it. There's people that, I don't have my ID. There were some issues with some people's fax cards, which is inevitably going to happen. So I would urge you to get there early tomorrow night. I did hear Wade Miller say that they're opening up the park a little earlier tomorrow, 6 p.m. You're going to need to have your ID. You're going to need to have your QR code. They'll scan that, and then you'll move forward, and then you'll scan your ticket going into the building. There was, as Leighton mentioned, there was a crazy line. And I think a lot of people are just used to showing up at the start of the game pretty much at the same time. And, unfortunately, that probably meant a lot of people missed. I will say from my perspective, I didn't know it was a 6:30 game. So I got there right about 7, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. There's not really a line. I walked right in, but I had missed the craziness beforehand. So for everybody going to the Bomber game tomorrow, give yourself a little bit of extra time. I do know the Bombers are doing $5 beers and $3 hot dogs before the game, so you can get in there, get a couple cold ones, grab a dog or two, and then get ready to welcome the Blue Bombers back. Because the last thing, Reem, you want is logistics to prevent you from missing that banner raising and welcoming the team back to the field at IG for the first time since winning that Grey Cup.
Yeah, that is definitely true. I saw Mike O'Shea telling TSN that, he's going to be a bit emotional, being on the field. And I think it will be an emotional time for all the fans. Just signaling, hey, things are coming back to the way they used to be. Might be a bit, going about it a bit differently, but we have CFL football, took the year off. It's still here. We're no crazy merger with the XFL to survive, sacrificing our great Canadian game, Hustler. So I'm looking forward to that. We were talking about what the lines might be yesterday, and we did see some it was a Bodog. We got a Coolbet, doesn't have anything else, but I think one bookmaker had on Hamilton 3.5 point favorites.
Yeah. So, and we talked about this on the Lock Shop. I don't know if many people saw us. We finished that program just before coming on today on Winnipeg Sports Talk. If you missed the podcast, subscribe to it. Just search the Lock Shop and get on that. I do it with Dustin Nielsen, who is calling the Elks Red Blacks game on the weekend. Yeah, it's been a big staring contest from all the books. And I get it, Reem. It's been 2 years since these teams have been on the field. There's been a ton of player movement. There's no preseason games. There's a major financial risk to laying bad lines in week number 1. And, it's sort of been, essentially a waiting game right now. We can tell you, Coolbet has now updated it following those other lines. Hamilton is a minus 3.5 point favorite. Are minus 189 on the money line. Bombers are plus 152 to win, and the over-under is 51. And I will save you. Well, the entire Lock Shop is a lot of fun and entertaining, so you should watch it or listen to it. But I'm on the Bombers, and this is a very simple pick, Reem. We put together what we thought these lines would be before we saw them. And I thought on a neutral field, Hamilton might be a point or a 1.5 favorite over the Bombers. They're a slight favorite to win the Grey Cup. But obviously people are very high on Hamilton to come in and spoil the party. So I think there's great value with the Bombers. I'm definitely taking the Bombers in the points. And the other game that sort of stood out to me, and we'll get Marshall's take on this when he joins us in a little bit. I thought that Edmonton would be like a 9 or a 10 point favorite against Ottawa. Edmonton at home, game number 1, new coach, new quarterback. So much talk about the struggles that the Red Blacks are expected to have. Was amazed that this line dropped at 5, and I would expect that we probably get up to 7.5 or 8 by the time game time happens on the weekend.
Yeah, I agree. Those were the ones when I first looked. I had Bombers slight favorite. It seems like Hamilton has some injuries on the D-line and the O-line that the Bombers are going to look to take advantage of. So I did bet Bombers on the money line, just small for fun. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in fantasy. I think Kenny Lawler might be the play from the Bombers. Want to go with one of their running backs, Oliveira or Augustine. They're a lot cheaper, but I think some workload concerns in terms of, how much of the share they're going to get. I'll have to look in. I'm going to look into my CFL fantasy tonight. We do have our DraftKings contest, 7 more spots in, whoever wants to join. And then I'll have a better. I need some over-unders, basically. Give me some point totals
Yeah, well, you got 51
51.
on the Bomber Ticat game, and yes,
Yeah.
33 in. So we've got 7 more spots for the DraftKings contest. It's $3. The top 5 players get paid. Would love to have you in. We're gonna do these on a weekly basis. It's a heck of a lot of fun. Remis can throw out the link, or you can go to our socials to get the link to it. And join the Winnipeg Sports Talk League going forward. Listen, we're going to talk a lot of CFL with Marshall. Let's get to a couple of the other big stories of the day. First things first, a golden moment for Andre DeGrasse. What an incredible performance, Remis. Got the bronze in the 100 meters and today ran to a gold medal win in the 200, becoming one of the great Canadian track and field Olympians of all time.
Yeah, I agree. He's got bronze in the 100, gold in the 200. He ran, again, we said yesterday that he ran, a personal best in the 100, and he did it again today in the 200 final. I mean, coming out of the turn, the American was a couple ahead, and then DeGrasse really accelerated through that final stretch. It was incredible. It was incredible to watch. 20 seconds, but it was an awesome 20 seconds, the anticipation. I woke up, I watched it on my tablet right before. The CBC app, everything has been so well done, and it was great coverage. And I loved watching the race, and I guess we'll have to wait for the replay. And Aaron Brown, the other Canadian in the race, he finished 6th. So we had 2 Canadians in there. But DeGrasse, I agree, Olympic legend right now, big candidate to be the closing ceremony's flag bearer, but etches his name in history right there. And fastest time ever by a Canadian in like 100 years or something, which is wild.
Yeah, it was his personal best, a Canadian record, and most importantly, a gold medal performance for Canada. Man, he'll still be there in Tokyo for a little bit longer. He's got some relays to run, and then he'll be back. And it was interesting hearing him talk about his kids. I wasn't really that familiar with Andre DeGrasse's family situation or whatnot, but just did a little digging on the internet afterwards. And I guess he is I'm not sure whether he's married or what, but has a child with a former Olympic medalist, an American hurdler. And I think of that, you got an Olympic medalist for the mom, Olympic gold medalist for the father. I'd love to buy some stock in that kid as potentially getting onto a podium at some point in Olympics in the future. So phenomenal news for Canada at the Olympics with DeGrasse doing his thing. Speaking of the Olympics, we count down to tomorrow's gold medal game between Canada and Sweden in women's soccer. And Remis, what has been talked about and requested by both of the teams is a change in the game time from 11 a.m. Friday, which of course is the reason why it was planned to start at 9 p.m. Winnipeg time. And I'm all for the safety of the women and making the game as good as possible. And selfishly, as a Bomber fan that will be at that game, I am kind of hoping that it gets moved because I do not want to miss any of it. And I'm somewhat nervous as to how many people are going to be trying to stream that game from the stands at IG Field in the second half tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear what happened. Team Canada knew that it was conflicting with the start of the CFL season, and they said, no, we can't have that. We want to give the CFL their moment, and we'll have our moment later. But from what I've heard is actually extremely hot there, and playing a game at 11 a.m. local time, not safe, not ideal for anyone. And I think they're trying to move it to an earlier time or later in the evening when it's a bit cooler. But there's a conflict with the stadium, with this track and field. So maybe they move it to a different stadium. But I don't know if you can have people running around like that when it's 40 degrees outside. That seems like a bad idea.
Well, I mean, it does. It just makes it more difficult. If it's dangerous, you can't do that. And I'm not sure. I mean, I'll leave that to experts to determine whether it is or whether it isn't. But again, you want to have the best match. You want it to be competed in a fair environment for all the athletes. And from a selfish standpoint, I'd like to be able to watch the whole damn game. So if it's at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m, I would much prefer that to missing the first half. And yes, to your point, track and field is on in the evening. So they are looking at other options, including potentially changing the stadium that it is in. And normally, I think this would be a complete non-starter, Reem, but I do have to imagine that if there was ever a time that it could be pulled off, now is the time because of the lack of fans and spectators in the stands. Although I know from a TV and a broadcast perspective, trying to move a broadcast from one stadium to another would be incredibly challenging. So we'll see what comes up over the next few hours, because as of right now, I believe it's still scheduled to go 9 p.m. tomorrow night.
Yeah, Team Canada and Team USA both putting in a request to change the time. So we'll see how that one goes, and we'll stay tuned, I guess. I mean, we're coming up. I mean, what's the deadline here to change the time? Like, how much lead time do they need? We're coming up on, the game is in what, 24 plus 12 hours?
Yeah, probably now. Probably literally now. But that story sort of broke later on last night. I think we've sort of been through the day or the evening there. I don't know, man. I'm on Tokyo time. I still feel like it's about 3 or 4 in the morning right now. But as I said, bottom line is our women are going to be going for gold against Sweden. We hope that it won't overlap with the Bombers Ticats, but we'll see what happens. We're going to talk Bombers Ticats and much more about the upcoming CFL season in just a second with our guy Marshall Ferguson. Really looking forward to that. Just before we do, want to shout out our friends at Paramount Services Limited, one of the newest sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Paramount Services is a full facility maintenance company, and they do it all for convenience stores and restaurants in Western Canada, and they're doing it 24/7, 365 for 28 years, serving your commercial HVAC, plumbing, electrical, handyman services, and working on many of the stores you're probably going into each and every day. From a business standpoint, if you're looking for a one-stop shop for your kitchen or cooler supplies for your business or property in Western Canada, give them a call or visit their website at ParamountServicesLTD.com for more information. And they're also looking for people right now. The HVAC, plumbing, electrical background, handymen. Paramount Services needs you, and not just here in Winnipeg, in Saskatchewan and Alberta as well, as they're servicing Western Canada every single day. So you can hit their logo on our sponsor tag at winnipegsportstalk.com. We'll take you to the careers page as well, or simply go to the website and find out more. Big thanks to Carrie O and Paramount Services for coming on with Winnipeg Sports Talk. We mentioned the game is tomorrow. You've still got time to get some new blue for your trip to IG Field tomorrow, and you can do that over at our friends at Royal Sports. Check out their Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina. I've got a number of photos and stories about the Bomber gear worn by all the staff yesterday. Easy in, easy out at the Royal Sports Superstore, but you might get caught up in the bike department, camping, maybe getting some disc golf equipment for the weekend, and of course soccer, baseball, hockey, and the greatest selection of licensed merchandise anywhere in the city. Royal Sports, get ready for the return of the Bombers and more. 650 Rally EK in the Superstore at 750 Pembina Highway. And a big shout out to the Nick and Nikki DQ group. I know Remis's son's birthday was a big hit on the weekend. Why? Well, I'm sure it was a lot of fun, but also because they got a great cake from the Nick and Nikki DQ group. You can get it at Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ St. Anne's, or DQ Polo Park. And if you want to order a cake for a special occasion in advance, hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. They'll get it all ready for you. You can just pop by any of the 4 locations to pick it up. And certainly pop by maybe for a burger. Certainly we're in blizzard weather right now with it very, very hot outside. I will suggest the drumstick blizzard, although everyone seems to be very high on the return of the Kit Kat blizzard as well. You can't go wrong. Nick and Nikki DQ with 4 locations here in Winnipeg and Southern Manitoba. All right, let's get ready for some football. One more sleep until the 2 finalists from 2019 are back at it right here in Peg City at IG Field. And I can't think of a better person to get ready for kickoff, both between these 2 clubs and the CFL season, than Marshall Ferguson, who is back with us on the program. Marsh, what is going on? It's great to talk to you again. And are you ready for some football?
I am. It's funny, though. I've been kind of thinking about it this week. I was joking the other day with Derek Taylor, talking with him, Hustler, where I said, Monday morning I woke up and I couldn't really figure out why. For some reason, I had a bounce in my step. I was running up and down the stairs. I had a nice healthy breakfast. I went for a jog, and then my fiance kind of looked at me about, I don't know, 10 minutes into the day after our son woke up. She was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "What? Like, why do you have so much energy?" I honestly can't put a finger on it. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know why I feel this way. And then I kind of realized I think because I feel normal. Like, and everything's not normal yet. As we know, this is going to be a strange season to start with. But it felt normal to think, okay, I'm in the rhythm of game prep, week, recap, and going to. It's just like I saw you were on with Dustin Nielsen this morning, and you guys were talking about CFL bets and setting lines, and you were just saying, like, you guys hadn't had the chance as of yet to be able to get into a normal CFL week since you've been doing stuff with Coolbet, and I just thought, like, it's so true. We are so programmed to be used to the life cycle week in, week out of the CFL. And it's been gone for so long that I keep trying to convince myself that no, it really is back. Like, there is a game coming up Thursday night, and then there's going to be a game Friday night, and then there's going to be a doubleheader Saturday. And every time I try to think of it in that way, my brain still, honestly, right now, just keeps going, nah, that's not true. There's no way that's possible. And I'm like, no, man, like, hey, wrap your head around it, because we are back.
Dude, it is happening, and I can tell you this city is ready to go. It should be a great crowd tomorrow night. Might take people a little bit of extra time to get in with the rules and showing the vax cards, but at the end of the day, regardless of what happens on the field tomorrow night, it is going to be. I know it'll be emotional, I think, for a lot of people here in Winnipeg, probably for CFL fans to watch it before they get to go to their own stadiums, and my God, what a great way to start it off with a matchup of arguably the two top teams in the league, certainly coming through this. But I'll ask you this right off the bat. How much do we really know about this upcoming CFL season? Because it was a big challenge for the bookmakers, and they're on the hook for a lot more than us with our hot takes on the radio and on YouTube or whatever. But I mean, every year, just when it comes to the NFL, I think, we're so excited for week one, and you learn the hard way when it comes to betting to not go too hard in week one, because everything you think you find out can blow up in your face. You add in a lost season, no preseason games, wondering where some of the veterans are over, the time. Are they in a better shape because they haven't been hit? Or have they not been doing anything or have a tough time getting up? I mean, I can't remember a scenario at any point in maybe any sport where it's more uncertain going into the beginning of a season.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the thing that keeps jumping out to me is I try to analyze the season and start to predict, okay, who's going to look good and what are these offenses going to look like and what's the pass rush like that they're going to be up against. Is that there are so many other leagues that you've been talking about for the extent of this pandemic, really, where the NBA went through the weird bubble, right? And it was a one-off and strange, and we weren't sure how the shooting was going to be, and there's no fans in the stands, and how does that impact certain players? And the NHL goes through the bubble in Edmonton, and then the NFL goes through not a bubble, but a weird setup where it was kind of like some teams had fans, some teams didn't. Some people had 80% stands, some people had 10%, and it was so different. And here we are, so long into the game, and we're in a spot now where we're seeing the CFL's version of that, where it's the one-off, it's the strange, it's the quirky setup. And again, it's no fault of anybody involved. I'm glad that they're getting back on the field, but to be able to come out and say right now, oh, Charleston Hughes is going to lead the CFL in sacks this year. Like, I get it. He's fresh, and he is with a team in Toronto, and he's very motivated that they've got a good pass rush, and he should have an opportunity. But like Shane Ray, his teammate, who's never taken a snap in the CFL, could lead the league in sacks for all that I know at this point. So there's so many guys that, as you say, I think the biggest question is how many of the young players are going to step up and make a name for themselves in a way that you don't even know who they are yet unless they're in your market and you've read some articles in your local newspaper about them. And how many of the older guys that we trust and we think are going to be very productive are going to get either pushed aside or going to see younger players outperform them, and the next generation could start to come in at a variety of positions. I think personally, we've already seen that at quarterback. I think we're starting to see the evolution of Michael Riley starting to make his way towards the back end of his career, although I hate to see him go. And in comes the Arbuckles, right? The next generation. And you're going to start to see, I think Dane Evans at some point is going to get a little run with the Ticats. And if not in Hamilton, he's going to get a look somewhere else to try and get a run, because that's the way the CFL works. Vernon Adams Jr., exceptional season in 2019. Can he follow it up and actually improve and evolve? So I think we're starting to see kind of the hands of Father Time shifting what the CFL looks like a little bit. And as much as you hate to lose some of the names that you know and love, I also think that you're going to get a lot of new names that are going to be on the back of jerseys. And one of them, honestly, that isn't super new, but that jumps out to me that I think is going to have an exceptional year that nobody is talking about is Kenny Lawler. Like, to me, when you see what Winnipeg has in their receiving group, you wish you had Bryant Mitchell, retires, doesn't come in. You wish you had Darvin Adams out with the upper body injury. I look at Kenny Lawler and I think, okay, yeah, Rasheed Bailey, yes, Nick Dembski, there's some other pieces there, but I think one of the guarantees I have for the year is Kenny Lawler's going to look really damn good. And I think that's exciting when you start to really narrow that down. And the good thing is we get answers as of this weekend, which is honestly one of the best parts about week one.
Well, Marsh, I concur with you 100%. And I've been mentioning this as we've talked about the CFL, knowing that the season was happening, in the context that, we're going to have all these discussions going into the season, but there is so much uncertainty. When you add in rookies from 2 years of NCAA football and youth sports for that matter, it wouldn't at all surprise me if we're doing a conversation like this after week 6 or week 7 and we pull up CFL leaders in all categories and have 2 or 3 guys that we don't even know their name right now as impact players in the Canadian Football League in a very short period of time.
Yeah, and one of the most fun exercises that I actually had going into this season, I did for CFL.ca. The article is up there if people want to check it out with a graphic and everything of a full roster. I made a 46-man dress roster. So to give you an idea for how ridiculous this is, I made a 46-man dress roster out of only players drafted from 2020 and 2021. And I had to leave, of course, a ton of guys off of that roster. So to be able to do that and still leave people out and have a really high caliber roster just from 2 draft classes, and to see those 2 draft classes come in and a bunch of guys have earned roster spots. Other people have been put on practice roster. I mean, Theron Churchill, who came out of, I believe, Regina, got drafted to the Argonauts as a first rounder. Him and Samuel Achmapong from Laurier, they're both on the practice roster. And I'm wondering how long they're going to be there for, because there are a couple of big bodies that if the injury wave starts to hit more than it did even in training camp, you could see those guys get a run. I think every team has that situation. The one for me that absolutely killed me, even though there was no room for him really, because you've got Brady Oliveira and you've got Johnny Augustine in Winnipeg. I just wanted Kyle Borsa to stay with the Bars. When I saw that they were letting him go to go back to university in Canada West, I'm like, well, it's great because he hasn't played university football in 2 years, one because of a suspension, the other one because of course, the season being canceled in 2020. He goes into the 21 CFL draft. He gets taken. I'm really excited about him. The physical aspects are off the charts. And then I think, well, I'd love to see him just stick around in Winnipeg, get a couple of kick returns, punt returns, learn the offense, see his role expanded down the line. And they send him back to school. Well, I guess the positive is he gets more reps. The downside is we don't get to watch him. We don't get to see him in the CFL sooner rather than later. So there's always going to be a catch-22 in balancing out that experience with that youthful exuberance and the want to be able to chase down their dreams. And I think there's a lot of guys that got drafted that are talented enough and worthy of an opportunity. There's just not roster spots right now. That's the reality. And we'll see what the rosters look like, as you say, once we get beyond Labor Day. I think you're going to, even though it's a shortened season, and usually the long CFL season will end up having more names sprinkled in than we expect because of injuries and just how long the season kind of wears you down. I think you're going to see more names get an opportunity. I don't know when it's going to be for those younger draft class guys. And that's the nature of having kind of that double quarter of 2 years of drafting thrown on one big pile.
Yeah, and I mean, and that is the trickle-down effect at the youth sports level. I mean, high school football as well. I mean, it's going to happen everywhere, and it's going to make it that much more interesting, I guess, when we see the games get back on.
The one thing I will say about that, though, that I'm actually really interested in, because I do love youth sports football as an ex-youth sports football player, is I kind of have this vibe that there were a lot of players going into the CFL draft that decided to opt out, right? We heard about that all over the place of guys saying, do I really want to go into a camp where there's 40 players that are all basically freshmen for a CFL team looking for 5 roster spots? A lot of guys decide, you know what? I've been given an extra year by youth sports. Let me go back to school and let me see if I can up my draft stock and go into a relatively normal draft cycle in the 2022 CFL draft for the 2022 CFL season. By going back for another year, for me, that takes the talent level right now of university football and it ratchets it up where your 4th and your 5th years are going to be out of this world. And I hope we have some incredible performances. The only downside to that is if you are a freshman coming out of high school anywhere across the country going into a youth sports school, well, that roster spot that you might have been promised going forward, it might not be there because they said when you committed, yeah, this guy's leaving and we want you to be our new stud running back. Well, guess what? Your stud running back never left for the CFL. He went to the University of Regina. Kyle Borst is back in the backfield, and they are going to use him a ton. So I think you're right. The trickle-down effect of that has changed, but I really hope we get some standout performances this fall, and it's going to be so good to see U Sports football back on the field.
And just quickly on Borsa, it's interesting you mentioned that because there's a lot of talk about Andrew Harris. He has been, missing for most of training camp on the field. Listen, the guy's had a Hall of Fame career, but he's 34 years old. We don't know how time has been, how kind it's been over the last time. And you think about the work and the amount of times that he was getting hit beforehand. It certainly does seem like the Bombers have a succession plan ready to go with Brady Oliveira, Augustine, and presumably for next year, Bursa in the mix, depending on, it's incredible Andrew Harris is still going at 34 years old. You wonder how much longer that can continue. But from an organizational perspective, they've really found something with great Canadian running backs and have loaded up beyond Andrew Harris for the future.
Yeah, I remember standing next to Ted Gavaya at the, I believe it was the John Cornish Trophy Award at Tim Hortons Field back in, 2019, before the world completely collapsed on its own head. And I was standing next to him, and I heard him say to somebody, yeah, we got this running back that's a Winnipeg native. This kid, he's probably going to be pretty good, Brady Oliveira. And then someone said, you interested in him? He goes, yeah, I'm going to draft him in the second round. He just shrugged. He just said, he's the perfect fit. I'm just going to draft him in the second round. Sure enough, he drafted him in the second round. So when he did, I kind of went, okay, yeah, this makes a whole lot of sense for them going forward. The thing I'm interested in with Andrew Harris is Derek Taylor has this concept that running backs are easily replaceable, whether they're young, American, Canadian, old, it doesn't matter to him. I disagree. I think top-end running back talent really separates you. We saw that in the Grey Cup. Like, Andrew Harris helped Winnipeg in a massive way win the Grey Cup. On top of his running accolades, obviously pass protection, being able to catch that seam ball down the middle of the field behind the uprights in the first quarter from Chris Strevler, like that separates him from a lot of other running backs in this league, doing all of those things at that size, that speed, that power. Then you start to think, okay, well, he was a huge chunk of when Zach Collaros was in the games, obviously, in 2019. And I went back today and looked at the 4 starts that Collaros had in 2019 with Winnipeg, and I believe it was 39.6%. So almost 40% of the targets run and pass in the offense with Paul LaPolice were directed towards Andrew Harris. And Darvin Adams accounted for 15.3% of those targets. So you put those two together, that's over half of your targets when Collaros was the starter in 2019 for the Bombers in that one regular season game and the 3 playoff games. And with Andrew Harris out and Darvin Adams out, where are they going to go with all of those touches? And are they going to lean with Buck Pierce as the offensive coordinator as heavily on the idea of Brady Oliveira doing everything that Andrew Harris has done? There's no reason not to. You drafted him, you developed him, you've worked him out. He's been in training camp. He looks fantastic. But I don't know if you're going to give the same amount of workload to somebody who's not named Andrew Harris. It's a weird spot to be in where you trust someone, but you just don't know if you can give them that amount of work and expect them to handle it the way that Andrew Harris has handled it forever, because he's proven that he can take that workload and just accept it and bounce off bodies and keep bouncing back. So, the idea of looking at the future, I think for Bombers fans, it's just another storyline to this game. When you're watching Brady Oliveira, you might be thinking to yourself as you're watching the game, aside from just enjoying the game and the experience and being back at IG Field, you might be looking and going, is this going to be the guy for us down the road? And can he be almost a carbon copy of Andrew Harris? Because if he can, then the Bombers organization has set themselves up really, really nicely.
Well, it's interesting you put that in. I will say this, focusing on those 4 games. And again, they're the only 4 games we've got with Zach Collaros, so that's all there is. That was a team of a guy that was coming in to be the starting quarterback that got, picked up at the deadline and what was sort of thought to be an afterthought and ended up with the championship trophy. But that team, Marsh, was sort of a CFL unicorn. They won the Grey Cup as the 9th passing offense in the league. They did it with dominating offensive line, dominating defensive line, a great running game, and an offensive attack that was very different than many of the other teams in the league. I do think that this year's Bomber offense coming out of the gate with Zach Collaros at QB with Buck Pierce as the offensive coordinator will look significantly different and will not rely on the running game. I think this will be more like maybe a prototypical CFL offense as opposed to the one that relied so much on Harris. And we can't forget about Chris Strevler, who, speaking of unicorns, was a pretty, one-of-a-kind athlete
Yeah.
that, you know, when it come to passing wasn't really there, but you want to get a first down, he'll just take it there. I mean, just thoughts on how different the Bombers might look this year, particularly because of the guy behind center.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by it. And I think with Zach having the amount of experience he does in the Canadian Football League and knowing that he has the ability to shape an offense to have great success, I mean, we forget because it's been so long now in terms of CFL timelines, but 2015, Zach was the MOP before his knee exploded. So he knows how to he's got the influences of working with Kent Austin, of working with Tommy Condell, working with Stephen McAdoo with that run heavy style that was in Saskatchewan, and people that he's gone through high school with when he was back in Steubenville, and then of course going to Cincinnati and being very successful there. It's like he's got so many concepts, so many ideas. That's the huge plus for me of having a veteran quarterback is they can pick and choose and have these conversations. And I'm actually really interested because I think it's a great case study in coaches overthinking it, which is always something that we talk about when you have a bye week and you're going into a big game, for example, in the NFL, right, where you win your conference championship and then the week in between, there's nothing. People always say, well, if you give a coach too much time, does he actually do damage to himself and to his game plan because he overthinks or he overanalyzes? I'm wondering which coaching staffs, Ottawa and Winnipeg come to mind, have had so much time and they're trying to reinvent the wheel in some different ways with some different coaches that maybe they end up hurting themselves by trying to draw something up that's big and beautiful and instead of just doing the right stuff. But I think with Zach, he knows when it's too much. Like he knows when he's reached his limit, when the team has reached their limit, I think, of saying, this is who we are. Let's find an identity. Let's carve it out. But I don't know if you go away from the run with Andrew Harris in, because I think you can still get great productivity out of him in a multiple variety of ways. But I do think that if you have Brady Oliveira in there a little bit, and once you get Darvin Adams back, then you can start to play around, I think, with a little bit more of those spread concepts where maybe it's less run on first down. I mean, it was basically 50-50, as you say, Hustler. Like the idea of going 50% run on first down in the CFL is basically ludicrous because the league average is about 76% on first and 10 in 2019. On second and 10 in the CFL in 2019, we were throwing the ball. This is all 9 teams. We're throwing the ball 95% of the time on second and 10. Like that's the way the league is. And that is several thousand snaps that we're going 95% pass. So it's an entertaining league. I think that every team's going to evolve a little bit, but what is Winnipeg going to look like? What is Ottawa going to look like? We all have ideas on what it'll look like. None of us know, and that's great. I love that we get to find out what this is going to look like in real time all together, and we'll all be talking about it on Twitter all at the same time.
Well, tell us what the Ticats are going to look like. We're going to see them tomorrow night. They are the Grey Cup favorites right now. I was stunned, to be honest, that they opened up as like a 3.5, 4-point road favorite against the Bombers, considering the last time we saw these teams on the field. But there's certainly the consensus is that Hamilton, despite their loss to Winnipeg and Calgary in 2019, is the team to beat. Fill us in on the visitors for tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think they've got some issues at tackle. That's going to be the biggest challenge going up against Willie Jefferson and Jackson Jeffcoat. Is there's no way that you can expect Jeremiah Masoli to be able to just operate cleanly from the pocket. So Tommy Condell's got to move in some different pieces there, whether it's chip blocking with Nikola Kalinic, lining up with a tight end, 7-man protections, using some bigger running back. Sean Thomas Arlington is listed as the starter at running back, which I think makes a lot of people in Hamilton happy because he's gone through his injury issues. I look at this team right now as they are a bit of a shell of what they were going to be in 2020 and what they were in 2019, but they're still good enough to win the East. And if Masoli gets some of these pieces back, like Devere Posey, who he hasn't played with ever, and Braylon Addison, who's back in the fold after a trip to the NFL in 2020 to play with the Vikings, then they've got the opportunity to throw it up and down the field still. The question is, though, can you not get yourself a little bit in rhythm through the ground game with Sean Thomas Arlington? Because if you can do that, it'll open up the playbook. It'll slow down the DNs. And I think they need some really consistent play from their interior 3. For so long, it has been Brandon Revenberg, obviously with Mike Filer, and then Darius Sirocco was at the right guard spot. Well, now Filer's gone. You move Sirocco into the middle at center. You still got Revenberg there, and you're moving in Jesse Gibbon, who's a really talented big man out of the University of Waterloo at right guard. But it's thin and it's young all of a sudden, especially with Chris Van Zyl out, Kay Okafor, who was a converted defensive lineman from St. FX, who came over when he was very young, basically was playing basketball in a gym in Prince Edward Island, and the head coach out at St. FX, Gary Waterman, saw him and said, "Do you want to play some football?" Brought him in, turned him into a great pass rusher. So they've got an opportunity, I think, to do some things that are special, but they're going to have to lean on their young Canadian talent.
Marshall Ferguson is our guest here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, getting ready for tomorrow's CFL kickoff at IG Field between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Moving away from tomorrow night's game, Marsh, when you look at the West, outside of the Bombers, who I think most people agree will be a contender, it does seem very wide open. We kind of mentioned what we don't know. What do we know about the West, and who are you high on, and who are you fading? Yeah, just having a little issue resuming out. It still sounds great though, Reem. I will say that. There's no I see it. Yes, no, we're working through a quick muting just because we lost some of that the system. But Reem, will let me know when we can hopefully hear our friend Marshall Ferguson back here.
Sure.
Yeah, perfect. So Marshall's just going to get back, and we'll get him back in a minute. We've been talking about a lot about these lines that were put out, and it was Dave Naylor who dropped these right off the bat. And I believe the first book, a place called Bet Regal, that is working with the Canadian Football League as a sponsor, was probably pressured into being the first ones to throw them out. But the opening lines was Hamilton -4 at Winnipeg. That almost immediately dropped to 3.5. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are a 4.5-point favorite, home to the BC Lions. The Calgary Stampeders are 5-point favorites over Toronto. And full disclosure, I think we talked about this yesterday on the program. I was thinking both of those games would probably be in and around a touchdown. And then the game that probably surprised me the most outside of tomorrow's game was Edmonton and Ottawa. As Marsh mentioned, we pretty much have the entire world thinking that Ottawa is going to be. Now, these are dangerous assumptions because we've just talked about how uncertain everything is. But, they are the consensus team that will struggle this season. Marsh just mentioned how high he and many people are on Edmonton. So the fact that Ottawa is only a 5-point underdog, you account for the 3 points of home field advantage, and that's essentially a 2-point spread. And I don't know whether that is giving the Red Blacks more credit than maybe average people have been, or a wait and see line on the Edmonton Elks. But either way, we jumped on it right away. That was that was a pick that I think looked very, very good for us when we started it all going forward. Marsh, we back and we got you okay?
Yeah, sorry about that. The computer was overheating with all the CFL takes, so
I love it.
Nearly exploded, but we are back.
So yeah, your thoughts on the West overall? You mentioned that you do like Edmonton, and I was just kind of going over. Part of the reason why I was so surprised at that line is I think a lot of people are thinking what you're thinking, and even the people that aren't don't like Ottawa very much. But as far as Edmonton goes, you've got Trevor Harris, you've got a revamped defense. But again, a very, very tough division where the Riders, the Bombers, Calgary are all expected to be good. And I think a lot of people expecting BC has to be much better with Mike Riley.
I just don't know how BC gets worse, and I don't say that as slander towards their 2019. I just don't know how you can protect him any worse. And I know they're going to be better on the offensive line this year because Kelly Bates is a really talented offensive line coach, and I don't know of any Ottawa Red Blacks coach teams by Rick Campbell where you would look at them and think, well, they can't protect. And I understand that this is Jordan McSimic as the offensive coordinator coming in who worked with Riley in Edmonton. I understand that it's Michael Riley who might be slightly less mobile than he's been in previous years over the last decade. I understand there's different offensive pieces that are in there, but I just look at BC and I'm like, there's no way that they have to protect him, that they will protect him any worse than they did in 2019. So inevitably, if you give Michael Riley more time, what is Michael Riley going to do? Going to make plays. Like, he's talented. He sees the field. He stands over the top. He delivers the ball. The number of times I've seen him in person in games that I've called for the Tiger Cats against Edmonton or BC make throws that nobody else in the league will even try is why I just believe that BC has to be better. With that being said, it feels like every year in the West, this is the conundrum, is we run into, well, I could see BC reaching up into the top 3. I don't think I can see them being in the top 2. I think that that's going to be some combination of Edmonton, Saskatchewan, and Winnipeg. Then I look at myself and wonder, okay, well, if that's going to be the top 3 and BC has to fight their way up into there, who are they going to beat head to head? Are they going to go into Saskatchewan in week number 1 and beat the Riders and set the tone for the year? I have a hard time imagining that. So, okay, are they going to be able to take down the Bombers? Well, okay, look at the individual matchups. Is that offensive line vastly improved enough to deal with Steven Richardson and Jackson Jeffcoat and Willie Jefferson and Adam Bighill and on and on and on the list goes in that front 7 for the Bombers? So you start to really nitpick the little individual matchups, and I think you quickly realize that BC is going to be improved, but it might not make a difference. They still might be up against it. The one that I'm really fascinated by right now, just because we haven't had questions about them like this in quite some time, is Calgary. And their offensive line has been forced to go through an evolution where Shane Bergman retires, Neil Cassatati retires, and you're fitting in these Canadian pieces, very similar to what the Tiger Cats are doing going into week 1, where you feel like you've drafted and developed and you trust these guys, but when you are going up against what the front 7 looks like it's going to be right now for the Argonauts, I'm not sure if the Argos have figured out yet, John Murphy, how to dress 15 defensive linemen, but it kind of feels like that might be something they try to do in this game. We'll see when the dress roster comes out. But I look at that in the shadows of how this organization has looked over the last 10 years. Going into a season, I don't think that I've ever had the question, well, okay, who's going to be the guy that Bo is going to lean on? Because I think it's going to be Kamar Jordan, but after that, is it Huff, Ambles? Is it Hergy Mayala? Is he going to become the best Canadian receiver up there with the Lamar Durants of the world? And I keep wondering what evolution the Calgary Stampeders roster is going to take on as we go deeper into this season. Starting against Toronto is an incredible matchup, and not just for the Arbuckle and Dinwiddie storyline. It's because there's so much that's unknown about how the Argos are going to take all of this talent, smash it together, and come out looking good on the other side. And I also don't know how Calgary is going to take all this evolution that they're not used to, get together in a camp, not have Bo Levi Mitchell take a whole ton of reps because he was dealing with the groin injury, and then smash that together, get to week 1. And oh, by the way, there's fans in the stands who they're going to be expecting Calgary to look like Calgary. But I don't know if they're going to quickly. So that one's really intriguing to me just because I don't think it's going to give us a great read, but I do think it's going to give us some great entertainment. And I think part of the early season of the CFL is just that you have to enjoy the entertainment value because the football might take a couple of weeks to catch up to what we're used to.
Well, just quickly before we go on Calgary, and that's something Dusty and I have been talking about for the last couple of weeks, just looking at CFL futures. I mean, I was stunned to see their over-under win total at 7. And I jumped on the over on that for one reason only. They always get it done. And you ask about who Bo Levi is going to lean on. He's going to lean on the guy that's getting open. And he's probably going to move the chains and do that. And you have to go back to 2007 to see a Calgary team that was 500 or worse. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they'll be an 8-win team, will be in the mix. Marsh, this has been so much fun. As a fellow TSN radio orphan, I know there's a lot of people here that are loving you. I mean, just the brilliant takes and analysis of CFL football. Fill us in on what you're doing right now and where people will be able to hear more of you throughout the CFL season.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We've got this merry bunch of pirates now bouncing throughout the media landscape.
Oh, yeah.
From Vancouver, Winnipeg, and Hamilton, that we're having a lot of fun with it. And congratulations to you guys as well with Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, because I know when I saw it pop up, I was extremely excited. And I laughed as well with Derek Taylor. We sat down one night to do a podcast. And I said, do you realize that Hustler got more followers on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily in about an hour than we did in like 3 months doing Canadian football perspective? So there is a deep, passionate following for what you guys are doing in Winnipeg, and I applaud you for being able to access that and bring people the things in the sports and the people that they care so much about. So for me, running Canadian Football Perspective, that's where people can find me on Twitter at CF Perspective. It's basically CFL analysis, 5 podcasts each and every week. We're on every single weekday talking about the CFL storyline, stats, analysis. We got some great partners as well from Fox 40, who you know is the Whistle People, of course, and Sawdust City Beer, who help us out by being able to kind of get the technology and everything off the ground each and every month. And then, of course, I'm at TSN_Marsh on Twitter. I recently joined something called Instagram. I was only about a decade late getting on to this thing that the kids call the Graham Hustler.
Yeah, I'm sure you were following quite a few accounts. You just weren't posting.
Oh, I was never a shadow. I am not Kevin Durant, okay? I don't live in the shadows on Instagram. But, yeah, I joined up there, and it's been fun just as a way to kind of share some more of my work with people. And part of the reasoning that I actually jumped on Instagram was that I have an opportunity to call a couple of games this year for the CFL on TSN, which I'm very, very thankful for. So going to get an opportunity to do some play-by-play. My first game is coming up. BC at Ottawa, week 4 will be the first time that I'm on the mic on the CFL and TSN with Dwayne Ford and Matthew Shinetti. It'll be Rick Campbell's first time being back in Ottawa. It'll be Paul Lapalise's first game with Matt Nichols back in the nation's capital. We got great storylines, and we're really excited to be able to put on a great production for people that night.
I can tell you, I mean, I think it's quite apparent if people have not already checked out Canadian Football Perspective. You're getting a hell of a perspective, and I am so excited to see you get on the mic. It's like my guys, Dusty doing things out west, getting you going in the east, and there's going to be some very exciting things going forward. Remo, I know, just put a link in the chat to see a perspective. Definitely get them on YouTube as well. If you're a CFL fan, you're definitely going to be want to watch all the content coming out on a weekly basis. Marsh, let's do this again soon and enjoy kickoff tomorrow.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Have yourselves a great weekend.
There he is, TSN_Marsh. That is Marshall Ferguson. What a great conversation. Cannot wait for that game tomorrow. All right, we are going to switch from football to hockey, take a trip to home of the Chicken Wing, Buffalo, New York, with our pal Joe Yerdon. Before we do that, I do want to thank our good friends at Not AutoCorp for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk since day one. Big supporters of the Bombers as well. I know T. Knott and the gang are going to be ready to go for tomorrow night. And, I've been following on their Instagram, speaking of the gram, at Not AutoCorp. You should definitely give them a follow. Just seeing some of the vehicles, the incredible vehicles that have been moving off the lot. Congratulations to everyone. A couple beautiful new Teslas, nice big Range Rover. But it's not all big luxury cars, but they do have an incredible selection. If you're thinking about a new whip for you and the family, Not AutoCorp, Waverly and McGillivray. Check them out online at not.ca. They'll help you get out of your present vehicle with their consignment program. And if you need service, detailing, anything else, Not AutoCorp can help you out as well. Check them out online at not.ca. A cheers to all of you with our little brown jug. This is the summer lager. Of course, we've got the Hefeweizen, and it's all available in their summer variety pack, which has been so popular this year. I still tend to go for the flagship product, the 1919. But it's all there. You can get home delivery anywhere in the city of Winnipeg if you order by 4 p.m. That's all done at littlebrownjug.ca. But now that we're opening up and getting out in the community a little bit more, pop down and see them on William Avenue. The brewery is there. They've got a beautiful patio for enjoying a few cold ones with friends and a few slices of pizza. All their merchandise is there as well. So pop down, see them, enjoy some Little Brown Jug. And if you pop down there, tell them that your friends at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And a big shout out to our friends at Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club, who sponsor all of our golf reports on the program. Can tell you that our Canadian women, sort of a tough first round yesterday in Tokyo. Elena Sharp and Brooke Henderson both finishing 3 over par. We'll hope that can be reversed tonight. When it'll be on, I guess, tonight for us, tomorrow for them, with the second round of action. And of course, it is the FedEx Memphis St. Jude tournament this week on the PGA Tour. Brooks Koepka, the favorite. Dusty and I hit some picks on that on today's Lock Shop. Pick that up. If you're thinking about a great golf home for you and your family next year, Breezy Bend is the spot to do it. Give him a call, talk to Corey Johnson, or find out more online at breezybend.ca about making that your golfing home next season. All right, let's head to Buffalo. It's been a little while since we talked to our pal Joe Yerdon, but there's been no shortage of storylines coming out of the Sabres offseason, and just about all of them revolve around Jack Eichel. Joe, what's going on? Welcome back to WST. How are you, my friend?
Well, I'm doing great. I'm now thirsty for a beer after that spot. I want to go to the Little Brown Jug, man. That seems like some
We
good
got to
stuff.
get you here to the Peg sometime. We will entertain you. We'll have some good times, and we will definitely pop by there for some 1919s. We'll let you sample them all, Joe.
Oh, beautiful.
Where are things at right now with Jack Eichel? I mean, is it possible that this whole thing has gotten even messier over the past week or two? Because it didn't seem like we were starting in a very good place to begin with.
Yeah, it's devolved pretty swiftly. Every time GM Kevin Adams seems to reiterate the point that Jack's their guy, like they have him, they don't have to move him right away, and that they'll move at the pace that they feel that they need to get what they should have. Jack's agents seem to respond in kind by letting him know, listen, man, we were supposed to have a deal here. We've been waiting on a deal. And now it seems the new line in the sand is that, this is it, man. Like, we're talking about a guy's livelihood, his health, and let's get it going here. Like, let's get this over with so everybody can move on. And now we got video of him skating and playing in Boston, and he looks good. And if that's helping them get him out of Buffalo sooner, I don't know that it's really worked as of yet, because he's still a Buffalo Sabre. So it's something else, man. You'd figure that getting a guy that's a top 10 talent would be easy to offload, but apparently not.
Well, and to me, there's two big things involved in this. One is the health situation, the preferred surgery. The other is the ask from the Sabres. We'll get to that in a second. What can you tell us about what's wrong with him, what he wants to have done, what the team wants to have done, and why this is sort of in a stalemate right now with nothing getting done?
Well, he's got a herniated disc in his neck, which is painful, and it's not enjoyable. And I can't imagine playing hockey with one. Is it all good? And he wants the operation he's looking to get done is an artificial disc replacement, which I know sounds incredibly difficult. And it sounds like it would be something very time consuming, and the rehab from it would take forever. But we heard from Jack's doctor on the 31 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick, and he went into detail, very obviously very biased detail of what goes into it and what it's going to take to get things taken care of. And he made it sound like the timetable is at most 12 weeks, which would be 3 months. And he says that a neck fusion operation, which it seems like that would be the more preferred course by the Sabres, would take 3 months. Absolutely. Whereas Jack could be back and skating in 6 weeks at a minimum with the artificial disc replacement. But the point that seems to be that I seem to catch out of this was that he can have the artificial replacement. And if it still does, if that doesn't take care of it, then he still has to get a fusion done, which I don't, listen, that sounds like a worst case scenario to me, but the Sabres have been very adamant, and their doctors are good. It's not like they're running around with a pack of quacks here, but they've been adamant that rehab and just rest and letting it settle down is the preferred way to go about it, because they'd rather not have him get operated on, because let's face it, a neck surgery doesn't sound very appealing to anybody. But for Jack's case, he wants to get it done. Loads of MMA guys have had it done. Chris Weidman's one of them. He's had it done, and he's performed very well since that's happened. And the Sabres are just not willing to go to that level. And Jack's made sure to point out that it's his quality of life as well that's being affected here, and this is what he wants to get done. But the language in the CBA says the team has to approve it, and the Sabres do not approve it. Now, that's not to say other teams feel the same way. Some other teams have been okay with their guys looking for for a different way to go about it, and they've been okay. Yeah, that works. Let's do it. The Sabres have drawn a very hard line here, and that's what's led us to where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I do understand from a Buffalo perspective. They made Jack Eichel a very rich man. They gave him $10 million a year for 8 years, and they got $50 million in invoices coming from the Eichel camp. And I understand them wanting to be sure, not take chances with something that might not be on board with. All that being said, he's probably not playing in Buffalo again. Can they get a trade done before this happens? And how cooperative are Buffalo and with maybe some of the other teams that want to poke and prod Jack Eichel and see how healthy he is. Because, if you've got full confidence that Jack Eichel will be the player that he has been in the past, I think it makes it a heck of a lot easier to make the deal. Although I'm not sure that Buffalo has that confidence right now, and that goes back to what you've just been saying.
Yeah, this is what makes everything even more messy. The Sabres asking price should be astronomically high. I mean, it has to be. You don't give away an MVP caliber player just for cents on the dollar because it's causing problems or it's causing an issue or what have you. You have disagreements over surgery.
They did that once with Ryan O'Reilly already, and O'Reilly, with all due respect, isn't quite Jack Eichel.
Yeah, and I think that's very fresh in the back of the minds of everybody that's in the organization. That they know they got the wool pulled over their eyes on the O'Reilly deal because. Again, their own mandates kind of made that happen because they didn't want to pay his bonus by July 1st. And, they if they paid it out, then they probably get a better deal from St. Louis or whoever. But they didn't want to pay it out, so they took a lesser return. And that's worked out really well for Buffalo. So, so they don't have that kind of hang up on things. It's $50 million they owe them. Like, that's straight out. Like, there's no hidden cash. It's not deferred money, anything like that. It's $50 million flat. But they have to hold a hard line here. Not to say that they should wheel it back a little bit just because, if they got a good return on O'Reilly. This is a whole different ball of wax. Eichel's a better player offensively than O'Reilly, not better defensively, but if you're comparing the two, I'm sure you're going to be split amongst GMs which guy you'd rather have, especially because now there's a Stanley Cup involved. But Jack's incredible. So, Buffalo wanting to get more makes sense, but also it doesn't make sense from the point that they're being so hard about things with Jack. If ultimately he wants to go, wouldn't you get things taken care of so that he's in the best shape, that he's in the best position, best condition to be able to trade him to somebody and get that max package?
Yeah, well, and that has been it's been the conversation around this whole thing. What goes first? It's almost a chicken or the egg thing right now. Mm-hmm. And it's a standoff between everyone. As far as the ask, what do you know about what it will take to get Jack Eichel out of Buffalo?
Well, it's a lot. You're talking probably two top prospects, at least a first round pick in 2022. Maybe even a second pick, maybe like a second round pick or something like that. And then you likely have to take some kind of big money player in return for him, which that's negotiable. Like that, you can get that figured out. Getting the rest of it is the hard part. And I think that's where other teams are blanching at it because, they're getting one player in return. Granted, it's an outstanding player and you don't always know what you're going to get in prospects. It's a known quantity versus two possibly known quantities. So that's where you get a deal where, I know with Vegas, Buffalo really wants Peyton Krebs, as they should. He's their top prospect. Like, that's the guy you want in return. Also, he's a center. Makes perfect sense. Minnesota, they want Marco Rossi. Again, a center who they probably should have drafted anyways last year instead of Jack Quinn. But like, you get Rossi, maybe you get Matthew Boldy, and you get a first. Okay, great. Anaheim, you're asking probably for both Drysdale and Zagreus and their first round pick, and you're probably taking like Adam Henrique back. So to me, the parameters are out there, but the give is a lot. I know a lot of those teams probably don't want to give up two prospects, but listen, you're getting a top 10 player in return. And everybody wants to win the trade. Sometimes you just got to accept that a hockey trade can be made here.
Well, and, from a Buffalo standpoint, organizationally and a fan base, they don't want 4 quarters for $1, like they've had in the past. There needs to be some serious upside with this package that comes back from whatever team comes that, that helps the team go forward. Because as miserable as this last season was, and, to be honest, the last decade has been plus in Buffalo, the short term doesn't look any better. Especially with the deals that have been made by Kevin Adams over the course of this next little while. So the investment right now with the trade of Jack Eichel has to bring in some blue chip players that the Buffalo Sabres know can help them win hockey games. Maybe not this season, but at least in the years to come. Vegas is so interesting because we know how aggressive they have been compared to most other teams. and Krebs certainly was named. Nick Hague, another top prospect, a young guy that they've got that seems to be almost ready to kick in, a first-round pick, and potentially another player that would have to come in to offset salary. Outside of Vegas, who is the most likely team? Because I've heard a lot of Anaheim, and Anaheim does make sense. But we've heard that Anaheim wants Jack Eichel, but they don't want to trade Zegras or Drysdale. I mean, I look at their organizational depth chart. There's nobody that gets that deal done if you're not including those guys. So, I mean, for a young GM without a lot of experience, he's in quite the situation right now. And I'm not too sure how many other people are in his ear as well there, Joe, as far as what he needs to do, what he can do, what he can't do. And it makes it that much more fascinating, but probably very difficult and excruciating if you're a fan of the Buffalo Sabres that, honestly, as depressing as this whole thing has been, just wants it over and to move on with the package that comes to upstate New York.
Yeah, no, the fans are certainly beyond ready to move on. And, another thing that's made it a little difficult for Adams is, there's word that Terry Pegula stepped in and says he doesn't want Eichel traded somewhere in the Eastern Conference. Now, I think obviously that would be the smart thing to do, because if you're trying to get back to the playoffs for the first time in 10 years, I don't think you want 3, 4, 5 games against Jack Eichel haunting you every year. You're rubbing it in your face. It's bad enough O'Reilly does it to him twice a year and, shows up with a Conn Smythe in his pocket. But in this case, I mean, you're kind of limiting the field. Now, the teams in the East that have interest are, the Rangers have been mentioned a lot, but they apparently they're balking at any sort of ask for their elite prospects, and which doesn't make any sense to me. You're not going to give up your 5th and 6th best prospects and expect to get Jack Eichel in return. Sorry, that's not happening. But Montreal's an interesting one, because I think if they gave up Nick Suzuki, I think that's a lot more interesting, because I think Suzuki's going to be a very outstanding player. And if you're giving up Eichel, man, oh man, that makes every single game against the Habs a must watch. But with that kind of cost, obviously it's a little bit prohibitive. And I think that's where you can massage those things out. Those kinds of deals, you probably get startled at and you say, whoa, that's a lot here. But I think you can hammer it down and figure things out. Like if Anaheim doesn't want to give up one of Zegras or Drysdale, you say, okay, well, we'll take another first from you, which again, for Anaheim's sake, probably not a great idea, because they seem to be in about the same kind of position the Sabres are, at least prospect wise. A team like the Wild, Dean Evason's got them really turned around, but they don't have an elite center. That was a big problem for them in the playoffs. So you get a guy like Eichel in there, that's a great move. But, they've also got those buyouts to Parise and Suter, which, Eichel at $10 million a year, that's a big bite, because they're, for a few years in the future, they got 14 million counted against the cap right off the hop. So that makes it tough there. Vegas to me makes a ton of sense, because I think Bill Foley just doesn't care. He'll just be like, listen, that superstar, let's get him in here. We'll figure out the money. He obviously doesn't have any loyalty to any of the players that he has on the team, considering what, Marc-Andre Fleury just dealt with. So he's the wild card in the bunch, but at this point, fans are just like, let's just get him out of our face. Like we're over this. They've accepted that it's going to be bad for the next couple of years, because this is a fresh restart. Dylan Cousins and Rasmus Dahlin are their building blocks, and now they're hoping that the Middle Stats and the Tage Thompsons and those guys can step up and be a lot better.
Joe Yerdon's in Buffalo, joining us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I want to ask you about Kevyn Adams. And full disclosure, I thought it was almost laughable that he got the job in the way that he did. Botterill gets moved out. He was working for the owners in a business role and is all of a sudden an NHL GM. Now, listen, the guy did play in the National Hockey League, and I'm not dismissing anything that he's done, but it's a pretty important job, and especially at this time of where the Sabres are as a franchise. All that being said, Joe, I thought he ended up looking pretty damn good coming out of the period of time going into the expansion draft. I still cannot believe the return he was able to get for 1 year of Rasmus Ristolainen. What have you thought about the moves that Adams has been able to make over the course of the last couple weeks? And where's the confidence level of the guy that's running the ship, at least publicly right now, amongst a very depressed group of fans that just want to see a team get back to respectability?
Yeah, I think the return for Ristolainen got a lot of eyes turned there, because I don't think there was a huge expectation of getting a first round pick, for sure. But the fact that they were able to get a first and a second for him, and you switch, you get Robert Haig out there just to get the money moved around. But that was an outstanding return. The Reinhart return was a bit of a letdown. Certainly in comparison, if that was the only deal made, I think a lot of people would be very mad considering, especially because you're dealing them to an in-division rival. And Florida looks like they're going to be really good for a bit here. So, but those were the signals like, okay, they're actually going to do this, because I don't think a lot of fans were really believing it until it actually happened, especially with Ristolainen, because the last 3 years people thought, well, this guy's going to get traded. Just, when's it going to happen? And he's asked for it the last couple of years at the end of the season. Like, well, if they want to move on, that's cool. Like, I'm down with that. But I think with some of the additions they've made in free agency, listen, they didn't grab any super names here, but they swing a deal for Will Butcher. I think that's a really smart play. Butcher's a solid guy. He's a possession guy. He's a guy they tried to chase after a few years ago when he got out of college. They missed out. Fine. They go back and get him. I think it's a good ad. Mark Pesek has been here before. He was a first-round pick back in 2011. Another solid numbers guy, does a lot of possession, even played some forward, can handle that. So like those are good moves. Those are helpful moves. Vinny Hinostroza, another guy, like a smart sort of numbers guy addition, and a guy who's got Don Granato familiarity. Same for Butcher. So like those moves I like. But they're not glamour moves. You're not sitting there waiting for the season ticket renewal letter to come through and say, "Oh man, we got Will Butcher, let's go!" Like nobody's doing that. But this is a team. I think they finally recognized the spot that they're in. Like they know this is we got to kind of start over from the beginning here, because things have been so bad that. Just like every other thing that they've attempted in the last 5-6 years has just not worked. They haven't had the patience to sit through it, but yeah, at some point you just got to say, like, listen, if we keep trying to kick this can down the road, sooner than later, there's not going to be a can left, and we're going to run out of road. So I think they're in that kind of spot now where they're deciding, all right, we have to extend the road. Let's toss the can in the garbage and let's just try to figure it out the rest of the way.
Joe, this has been a lot of fun. Hey, just quickly before we go, a non-Sabres topic. Are the folding tables getting ready? How are the Bills Mafia? How are the Bills Mafia feeling going into the season? I imagine an incredible amount of excitement considering the season that the Bills had, in a direct contrast to what's happened with their hockey team over the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's funny how things just kind of balance out, right? Like that's, one team's going to be really bad. One team's going to be a Super Bowl contender. And people are psyched, man. Allen looks super in camp. You figure he's going to. Diggs looks great. I think if they could shut Cole Beasley up, they'd be a lot better off. But like they're super high on their rookies. Like Greg Rousseau is, I can't believe they got a 6'8" defender like that plays the line, or he's like an end or a lineman or something like that. He's crazy huge. So they're going to be really interesting. I think their division, people keep saying like they're going to roll through the division. I was like, I don't know, man. Like Patriots got all their guys back from that sat out for COVID last year. And if Tua has a Josh Allen blow up year, Dolphins are going to be a little bit tougher. So, but they should be the favorites. Them and Kansas City should be 1-2 with Cleveland probably lurking in the weeds. But yeah, expectations are super high. And the tables, fans back in the stadium, man, there's not going to be any tables left in the city.
They're already tailgating for the first game, I'm sure. Hey, Joe, this has been awesome. Great to catch up again. Thanks so much. We'll look forward to doing this again sometime. Folks, give him a follow on Twitter at Joe Yerdon. Joe, appreciate it as always, my man.
Thanks, Huss. Great to see you again.
You too. Areas Joe Yerdon joining us from Buffalo. Oh, what a mess that Eichel situation is. But I will tell you, this is the deal with Kevin Adams. They have to hold out for full value on this. They have to get full value on Jack Eichel, and they need to use this trade as the centerpiece of a changing of the guard there that hopefully brings brighter days for a team that has been mired near the bottom of the NHL standings for the last number of years. We have not forgot about Logan Stanley. We've also got to get to some Jets numbers. We will do that right now. I'll also mention to you, Remis right off the bat said finished up his game last night and hooked up with the boys for a couple pizzas, a team pitcher over at Boston Pizza. I agree with Reem. There is no better patio to get together with your friends after a ball game or just in general. And we've got Boston Pizzas throughout the city and the province to help you and your team out. When you're there, you'll check out the new summer menu. Check out that Burger Italiano and the honey dill fried chicken sandwich, which is phenomenal. Winnipeg people will love that, of course. And some great cocktails on the patio as well. The white sangria smash, the peachy mojito royale, the Galaxy Fishbowl, and the Bulldog Margarita Fishbowl right now available at your local Boston Pizza. Assiniboia Downs is back at it tonight. One more night for the week of live racing. We'll get to our picks a little bit later on. If you're looking to get out, you can certainly do that. You can also make reservations in the terrace dining room, and the VLTs are once again open between 9 a.m. and 12:15 a.m. All the information's there at AS Downs, and I'll look forward to getting back out to the track soon and hopefully seeing many of you out there. We'll get to our picks on HPI Bet a little bit later on. And again, big thanks to our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Had just an amazing time out there a few weeks ago. If you're thinking about a world-class trip, fly-in fishing in the province of Manitoba, you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg. Find out more at aikenslake.com. All right, let's get Michael Remis back in here because we did talk Bombers. We did talk Goldeyes. But we've also got some pretty significant Jets news. Not that it is unexpected, but certainly that the Jets ended up in another great signing by Kevin Cheveldayoff. I don't think there was any possibility of a long-term deal for Logan Stanley coming out of his rookie year. But I will say, Michael Remis, I was quite surprised that he essentially signed the Mason Appleton deal. I mean, a couple years at $900,000, he's going to have the opportunity, presumably, to continue establishing himself as a regular in the National Hockey League. We know the team is very high on him, considering that he was protected in the expansion draft. I'm a little surprised that his deal didn't start off with a 1, but with every dollar being so important for cap space, certainly from a team perspective, I think they got a guy they can lean on for the next couple of years that'll still be under team control, that is going to be playing for a relatively team-friendly number if he's a regular in the lineup.
Oh, yeah, and for a team that's up against the cap, to have a guy like Logan Stanley, who is an NHL player, I think we can agree he played shelter minutes last year, but they're going to give him an opportunity to step up and develop a bit further there. So $900K, 2 years. I don't know how you can be upset. It seemed like it was probably a pretty easy negotiation. I mean, Logan Stanley, again, he was a rookie last year. He didn't play a ton of tough minutes. He did what was asked of him. He showed in the playoffs there, that last game against Montreal, the bomb of a shot he has, slap or wrist. And when you're 6'7", you can really get some nice leverage. It's just simple physics. It's a physics lesson. I don't know what kind of flex. I remember Chara had some crazy one. Either way, I think it was probably an easy negotiation. And $900K for 2 years, it gives you some certainty there. A player in the lineup, although he'll be in a battle with some of the other young guys. But I think he's going to be starting in the lineup. And when you have the $900K there, pencil it in on the third line. I think that is good salary cap management.
Well, it definitely is. I mean, credit to Larry Simmons and Chevy for getting that deal done for the number that they did. I can tell you that if I'm Logan Stanley's agent, I'm kind of saying, guys, you just protected him in the expansion draft. I mean, he's obviously a pretty valuable member of your organization. Maybe deserves a little bit more. But again, for Stanley, I mean, his plan is, I think, to continue growing the way he has in the last couple seasons. And if he can do that for 2 more years, then I think when it becomes time for potentially a long-term commitment to the player, both the team has a much better idea of where he's at and where he's going, as well as his value. And, from Stanley's perspective, yeah, maybe they're not getting quite as much as he could have received on this contract, but it's a long play right now, and he intends on being an NHL defenseman for a long time, and he'll have plenty of opportunity to earn that money. What I was incredibly disappointed to hear, Remis, and I'm hoping that there will be maybe a secondary tweet to all of this, but we saw a flurry of new jersey numbers for the Winnipeg Jets. But the one that we didn't see on the list was a change from 64. Logan Stanley still wearing that training camp number. Maybe he actually does like it. Maybe that was his choice for some reason, but it certainly looks like a guy that, when I see a guy wearing 64, I think a guy that's in training camp and might get half of the first preseason game and then is in the mix for a deal between the ECHL and the American Hockey League, of which Stanley is definitely not that guy.
Yeah, I agree. And here we did have some Jets number changes as I throw the tweet up here. We've talked about it before, 64. I don't know what kind of number that is, Huss. It's a training camp number. Guys got to step it up. Either change it to 67 for 6'7", or
I could get behind that. There's a good reason for that.
He needs a real defenseman number, although maybe he's trying to put a stamp on number 64. But yeah, that's the first thing I looked for when the Jets announced their new jersey numbers, and here they are. Dubois is going to 80. We'll get to that later. Beaulieu 28, which we had heard from Schmitty last week. He was changing. Yeah, Schmitty. There you go. Nate Schmidt. Brandon Dillon's going to 5. Warren Jr. Schmitz 88. Burden 30. Riley Nash 20. And they got a couple of the new guys here: Austin Pognansky, Mikey Isamont, and it gives their numbers. And so there you are. Here's what they look like though in a Jets jersey. And then you can see Dubois wearing 80. Notable change. Schmidt 88. New guy. And Dillon 5. So,
well, let's get to the one thing that I think is very much noteworthy. I was quite surprised to see Dubois on that list, and then I'm like, 80 was that tribute to Nick Antropov? But no, in fact, it is his former teammate in the Columbus Blue Jackets organization, Matis Kivlevits, the young goaltender who tragically died in that fireworks accident on the 4th of July. And listen, I'm not familiar, and I'm sure we'll hear more about this when Dubois speaks to the media at some point as we get towards the training camp. But honestly, a switch from number 13, probably, it's it. I'm a big fan of number 13. It's worked in the past with guys like Brandon Tanev. But for whatever reason, there wasn't a lot of good luck going Dubois' way last season. So I'm definitely in with the number change. And considering that it is a tribute to a former friend and teammate of his, I think it's a nice thing to do. And you certainly heard from everybody in and around Columbus coming out of the tragedy of just how beloved this guy was. And I would imagine as a younger player in Dubois, they were probably quite close through training camps and whatnot, even though the goaltender was playing more so in the American Hockey League. So it was interesting to find out why Pierre-Luc Dubois changed to number 80. Because that, of course, there was a bunch of guys that needed a new number. That wasn't really something that I think was on a lot of people's radar. But now you find out why the jersey change was made. I think it's certainly a nice story, and hopefully it gives Doobie some better luck than he had last year with the Jets.
Yeah, I think we're all waiting for that Pierre-Luc Dubois bounce back next season, and maybe playing with his former teammates' number on his back. Will give him a boost. And here's an article on NHL.com saying he's going to be honoring his former teammate Matis Kivlenieks, who died July 4th in the tragic fireworks accident. And big story. They didn't have any quotes, direct quotes from Dubois. I just talked about the story and mentioned Dubois did send out a Instagram post with the caption, "Rip Kivy, you were a great person and an unbelievable friend to have." So clearly making an impact on Dubois' life, and he said, "You know what? I need to take the time to honor this player, my former teammate." And I saw some people in chat and some people on social media saying, "Oh, I bought a Dubois 13 jersey. Now he's switching to 80. Now my jersey is." I don't know how you could ever be upset with this decision. And personally, for me, I'm a player. I love old jerseys. I love clearance jerseys. I love jerseys of traded players. I really don't. I think when you buy a jersey, you got to know the deal going in that, the player can change their number or they can get traded.
Hey, at least he didn't get traded.
Yeah, I think it's just a snapshot in time. You have the number of Dubois' first season with the Jets.
Yeah, hey, if you have a Dubois 13 jersey, I wouldn't be pissed. I would say, you can wear that with pride, saying that you were an early adopter to the PLD era here in Winnipeg. Much like, listen, you see the Solani jerseys around. How many 13s do you see and how many 8s do you see?
Yeah, no one has an 8
It's all 13.
jersey. Yeah.
It's all 13. So, as I said, this sort of thing happens. Every now and then a guy will just go and change his number for
William Nylander.
For no reason. Yeah. And then, maybe some fans will be bent. But again, the way I look at it is, it's pretty cool. If you're one of those people that has a small number of jerseys, when people ask, well, why do you have that? Hey, I got it right when we got traded here. He was number 13.
Yeah,
So
I
don't worry
agree with
about
you.
that. You'll still look cool repping your Dubois jersey in 13 if you have it.
Yeah.
Here's the other question that we need to discuss here. So Nate Beaulieu is moved to number 28, and Nate Schmidt is number 88, which was Beaulieu's old number. Beaulieu did tell, I believe it was K&R when he jumped on with those guys after he signed, that he would be wearing number 88. I wonder whether, what's the transaction? What is the cost for a guy that is making just about $6 million a year to get his favorite number with his new team? Do we think that it was a cash outlay? Do we think that there was maybe a nice watch or a trip or something planned? Or whether it was Nate Beaulieu just trying to be the good soldier and saying, hey, if you want 88, you can have it. Where are you at on this, Remis? And I would love suggestions as to what the cost of that jersey switch is in the chat right now, people. You know what to do.
Yeah, my initial response was a Rolex watch. I think, isn't that the going rate? I don't know. Maybe you take like a nice iPad or something, like the most expensive one. Will that get it done? The PS5, you get your hands on one. I'm not sure. My first one was a nice watch. It was a Rolex. So I think that's the going rate. Or maybe Beaulieu just had already made the change and the number was open. We just didn't hear about it. I don't know.
Well, Chat Queen Taylor has said Schmidt made a comment on K&R that Beaulieu changed a month ago. So it seems though maybe he switched before Schmidt even came. That would be tough luck for Beaulieu to proactively change his number.
Sold early.
And then just open it up. I mean, it's sort of like, it's like selling a card for X amount. And then the next thing the guy does is goes and win the MVP or whatever. And then your card that you just sold is worth 10 times as much, but you didn't have it before.
I agree.
Anyways, I know there's a lot of big fans of Nate Schmidt already in this town. And 88 is a cool number. I will say that. I actually like it more for defensemen. I don't know why that is. It sort of just looks weird on defense, but big on the double numbers. Nate Schmidt has it. Nate Beaulieu still does have 1 year left on his contract. I know there was some talk about, where Beaulieu fits in. I mean, I think he fits in as a depth defenseman right now for the Winnipeg Jets. If everyone's healthy, he's probably a 7th or 8th defenseman, a guy that's in the press box, a guy that can go in and play when needed. But of course, the big question is to, if that top 6 that we assume will include DeMello, Stanley, Schmidt, Dillon, Pionk, and Morrissey. If there's an injury amongst that group, do they just go with a veteran replacement and let a guy like Sandberg and Ville Heinola continue to play big minutes in the American Hockey League, or do they get that opportunity? And the other thing, Reem, and this has to be mentioned, and maybe a little less urgent now that we've seen the very low number that Logan Stanley's contract came in, there would be the possibility of, whether it was a deal, if there was a taker for Nate Beaulieu to actually take that contract. But I have a feeling he's been a good soldier for the team before. He's coming back from injury. I have a feeling that he's in the mix right now and sort of plays that depth role, probably more often in the press box than not, but able to be tapped on the shoulder if Paul Maurice needs a guy.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the cap friendly here. And you just have the Jets D, here they are, all of them. You got Morrissey leading the way with the salary, 6.2, Schmidt 5.9, Dillon 3.9, DeMello 3, and then we got Beaulieu, Stanley, Heinola. So everyone in there. We're still waiting on Neil Pionk, Andrew Kopp. A little bit of room to fit him in, but it says current cap space. It's tight right now. It says $6 million here on cap friendly. But they also have an additional 5 because of Brian Little's. I don't think he's on LTIR in this. So
no. The timing of moving him to LTIR will be key to open up that salary space and availability for both a Pionk deal and a Kopp deal. Because honestly, with $6 million on the table right now, and I think there still is probably another depth signing or 2 coming before the beginning of the season. Could be wrong on that, but you would think that just with the amount of players that they lost, there might be a guy or 2 coming up outside of the guys within the organization that'll challenge for spots. Reem.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe there will be a depth signing. I mean, I'm saying I like Eric Stahl. I mean, we saw what he did on Montreal. He can be a veteran forward. He's from Thunder Bay. I don't know if he'd want to play here. but I'm a big Eric Stahl guy. Did Maurice coach him in Carolina? I'm trying to think. Maybe he did in his rookie season. So I'm I thought he was good. So, put him in on the fourth line. That would be pretty. Montreal had these great veteran fourth liners, and we saw that in like Corey Perry and it was Stahl,
Armia, and Perry.
That was a legit line. And
they were playing at times more than the other three lines. Coming out of the first round against the Leafs, I think at 5-on-5, they may have been the ice time leaders, or certainly were right up there. That wasn't, we're very used to seeing the Scheifele line get a ton of minutes, a fourth line get very few minutes, and a little bit more even in between the second and third line. Montreal was simply running four lines, and they basically did that throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, and you kind of need scoring from your fourth line too. So I know the Jets, the last couple of years, they've gone with guys on their fourth line who, were solid defensively, but maybe didn't provide enough offense, and basically when you're throwing them out there, you knew that they weren't going to score. And I think Riley Nash, well, very nice defensively. I can't really count him on offense. And Perreault, that's why he was so great. He scored goals when he was on the ice, even in very limited minutes. So I think he's going to be missed, and maybe they do find someone. You just lost Lewis. You lost your whole fourth line for Lewis, Thompson, Perreault, or bottom. They just signed one in Riley Nash, and you also lost Appleton. And we'll wait and see what happens with Kopp. But do you go and sign another veteran forward, or is there a trade coming? Because that is a considerable number of players you just lost there, and only replace one.
Absolutely. And the $6 million, as I mentioned, that will probably be in the neighborhood of the Pionk deal. Depending on the number of years he signs, and then you got to get Kopp done too. And the Kopp situation, I certainly know that the Winnipeg Jets would love to have Andrew Kopp. I'm not sure where he is at, but he's been here building up to where this team is right now, and I think probably looks at the additions the team has made and certainly wants to be a part of it. But again, it's a big decision, and probably at the point where he's in the best situation to sign a long-term deal than he's ever been before. If they can't get that done with Winnipeg, does that predicate a trade somewhere else where it happens? Not sure. But as we spoke with Murat last week, Reem, it's far but a sure thing or a done deal that Andrew Kopp will 100% be back, because of course everything that happened in the past, and now a little bit more of a squeeze on the cap number that the Jets even are able to offer Andrew Kopp this season and going forward.
Yeah, and he had a career year last year. And are you going to be paying him, market value for that career year? And also, you look at where he's in the Jets, and when I say career, 39 points in 55 games, and that was more points than he had in any other season, including ones where he played more games than that. So he's playing on the third line. Like, how much money do you want to give a third line guy when it comes to your salary structure? And we know the history. Went to arbitration before, wasn't happy about it, and we'll see what happens going forward. You look at the Jets. I can bring it up again. Where does he fit in among these forwards? Are you going to start paying him more money than Ehlers? I don't think he's $6 million. Is he a $5 million player like Dubois, or is he somewhere between 4 and 5? And what does he think he is, and what does the team think he is? And again, they filed for arbitration. The hearings aren't set, but that's just a formality. I wouldn't be too worried until, they're like, okay, we're going to do this arbitration thing. Because a lot of time you're just in a stare down to the final minute.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And after going there once, going there again would be, it wouldn't be a good sign for the long-term future of Andrew Kopp in Winnipeg if they actually get to one of those rooms again and go through that entire song and dance one more time.
Yeah, I agree. And then you get the 1-year deal, and then he's a UFA. Maybe you do want him as a self-rental for this year, and you just say, we're just going to lose him, or you look to try to get back some of those draft picks that you gave away or traded away to get Dillon and Schmidt, and maybe you look to do. Wasn't a huge fan of the Buchnevich deal for a talent thing, but you go and you trade, you get a pick in terms of making a trade. You trade a player who's an RFA, but to make a bigger deal, and then you get a player who can help you on your bottom lines, making less money, and also a pick. So maybe they do a trade like that. I think that was an interesting trade. And then it frees you up some room, sign Pionk long term, and whatever you need to do.
You get
the
most in demand player in the league right now, Mr. C Space. coming back to the team.
See space, nice. And yeah, next. I mean, just looking ahead to next year. I mean, do you keep bring back Stasny on these 1-year deals and renegotiate? Is that what they're going to do?
As long as he can keep playing. I mean, listen, I thought that the fact that they were able to get Stasny in at the number that they did, and only on a 1-year deal, was a perfect signing. I think the value was there. He's certainly worth that money, both on and off the ice. A very important member of the team, and we'll see how much longer he's going to play. I mean, he got to 1,000 games last year. And you do have young players, in particular one Cole Perfetti, who seems to be right now penciled in on the top line for Team Canada. They're just finishing up their summer camp evaluation. Again, it is summer. I realize it's very early. But Craig Button put something out today after, watching and scouting the entire thing that kind of has Perfetti there. And what'll be interesting is whether he's in the mix for that spot. I mean, I would imagine that he probably will be. And, playing in the American Hockey League, which he'll be able to do, as we understand, with the tweak to the rules for players that played a certain amount of games last year, of which he qualified for, and then the opportunity to represent Canada again on a world stage. And who knows? I mean, maybe you've got a Cole Caulfield situation as you get to the end of the season of a guy that's played a lot, played well, has continued to grow, and, might be able to help a team that has a need based on injuries, or just they think that he'd be better and he could pop in and make it. So it'll be a very interesting year for Perfetti, but sounds like the summer's going very well for him. Another camp with Team Canada after, of course, representing Canada in both the World Juniors and the World Hockey Championships last season.
Yeah, someone asked me, it was, who asked me? Andy McNeil, Digital Gambler on Twitter. I guess he's trying to do some projections or do some prop bets. He's like, what are the odds Perfetti, plays in the NHL? Well, I said, I don't think, knowing the team, I don't think he'll start. And if he does, I think maybe he'll play a couple games and then get sent down. But, depending on how it goes for injuries, let's say someone like Ehlers gets down, gets injured, or Dubois, or you need to throw him, need a spark plug. You need to throw him on the top two lines on wing. Maybe you do that later. But I don't think they're going into the season saying, okay, this guy's immediately getting a shot in the NHL. But, maybe, he has a good camp and they test him out. I think it's an option, but I don't think that's in the Jets' plan for this year. But maybe he forces their hand.
And you know what? And that's such an interesting question, because there's sort of two sides to that. And it all relates to the change in the rules that will allow Perfetti to play in the American Hockey League if he's not on the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, if that was not made, then I almost think there's a better chance of him being in the National Hockey League for the year. Now, that might mean a lot of time in the press box. That might mean, a lot of time with some not very significant minutes early on, depending on how things go. But that isn't the case. So I think you've now got the opportunity to have him play big minutes against men in the American Hockey League. We've talked about that. But the thing about it is, Reem, if they decided that he had to go back to junior, then he's just in junior for the rest of the year. There's no call-ups. This would be a different situation. So while I think it's less likely that he'll be on the team early on in the season because he'll be able to play in the American Hockey League, the fact that he'll be just down the hall and be able to be called up, I think will also put him in a situation that, if need be, is more likely to be there if he wasn't there at the start of the season, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. The AHL for the Jets organization to be able to put him in the NHL is huge. You don't have to make that tough decision. And we saw what happened with Kyle Connor. Started with the Moose, got called up, and never looked back. So maybe we do see something like that going forward. But as far as opening day, I'm not in. But we are keeping an eye that he is at the summer showcase skating. I know he spoke to the media and just gaining more and more experience. Getting stronger, getting faster, and working out.
I mean, what an exciting prospect. Another, Winnipeg Jet that, kind of fell a little bit, that now looks to be an impact player in the future in the National Hockey League. Leighton Janice asking, any chance Chevy signs Kopp for 1 year and lets him walk after the playoffs? Well, that's certainly a much better chance of happening if they end up getting to arbitration, because that's basically is probably what would happen. Now, there would be speculation that maybe they would end up trading him, or if they didn't think they were going to get a deal done, trade him now to a team like, say, Detroit, goes back home to Michigan. They've got a ton of cap space. If they liked him, they could give him the deal that he wants and sign him long term. But if it gets to that point and they do think that he's such an important part of the team, they don't want to lose him this year and take their chances at the end of the season, signing him or losing him for nothing. I don't think that is out of the question, Remis, but I will say I don't think that is the preferred plan of action for the Winnipeg Jets. Whether it's a long-term deal or a shorter-term deal, I do think the Winnipeg Jets, if they're making a deal with Andrew Kopp, would like to have him for more than one season. And of course, the one season could be determined by an arbitrator in another hearing if they go that route.
Yeah, Chevy said last week, looking at long-term deals with Kopp and Pionk, we know it's going to be tough to fit under the salary cap, but they have, they filed for arbitration. They will have a date to come up with the deal. So this is going to get resolved soon. We're not going to have a holdout situation like we've seen in the past year, and I think that's the best thing.
Yeah, totally. And I know Weber has been, Ken Weeb at Weeb's World, our good friend who hopefully is sinking some putts today with the boys out on the golf course. I think he said that he's quite confident that a deal does get done. Now, as I said, not sure how long that will be, what the money will be, but it does certainly seem what Ken's hearing from the organization, at least. I don't know how chatty he is with Kurt Overhart and the gang, but the intention is to get that done, and that'll be something that we'll follow going forward over the next few weeks as we get closer to the beginning of NHL season. We're really fired up for the beginning of CFL season tomorrow night. And we do now officially have Coolbet odds for the Bombers and the Ticats. Still waiting on the rest of the Canadian Football League, but it's all there for you, Reem. And Bombers are 3.5-point underdogs at home to the Ticats. I'm shocked. I thought that might be Winnipeg -1 or 2, or maybe even a pick'em. But when you add in the 3 points for home field advantage, it's essentially suggesting that the Ticats would be 6.5 or a touchdown favorite on a neutral field. And I don't know. I was just surprised at that, considering the Bombers beat the hell out of them in 2019. Now, as we talk with Marshall Ferguson, that could be quite a bit different. The money line right now, -182 for the Ticats, +147 for the Bombers. I will admit, I jumped on the Bombers right when this came out at +152. Just thought the value was there, and do love the Bombers getting 3.5 points at home as a home underdog to start off the season. So those numbers are there at Coolbet right now. The total, which was 51, is now at 51.5. And then if you want to really have some fun, you got one more day to get in on all of the props for the Canadian Football League season. Interesting to see, Reem. Andrew Harris is still the favorite for most rushing yards in the season. I love Harris, but I don't love that bet, especially considering his status going into the year. And the guy I like right now is William Stanback, and got him at +315 about 2 or 3 weeks ago when we did on the Lock Shop. Saw that it was +300 a little earlier in the week, and now that number's gone down again. I think a big part of that is Harris's availability or lack thereof for game number 1, which is expected tomorrow night with Brady Oliveira and Johnny Augustine in the background.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens for fantasy purposes, but yeah, rushing yards. Been seeing Stanback as the one who's touted there. We'll have to see some of the other picks. I'm waiting for the other lines. We got to see some over-unders. It's 51 points for the Bombers game tomorrow. I mean, if you wanted to bet on, I don't know, here's some interesting ones. What do we got? The Grey Cup winner, the Bombers are the second favorite team, +400. That's interesting. And we got receiving yards, Brandon Banks, Reggie Bagleton, Darvin Adams. He's not playing game 1, so Burnham could be interesting there at +370. I always liked him. Darrell Walker, +1100. It's not bad. And most passing yards, CFL. You guys have been on Trevor Harris. Wasn't it like +900 before, and now it's like +600?
It was 1100 when it first came out. And that number just sort of stood out amongst all of them. That's not making a lot of sense. And it's come way down. I'll tell you what, I do not mind a little long shot on Zach Collaros at 13-1. I mean, I realize the Bombers were the least passing team in the Canadian Football League, but that was a big part of the way that they were set up with Matt Nichols at quarterback and then Chris Streveler The passing numbers certainly went up when Zach Collaros was there, and I think the amount that they passed the ball went up, and I'm certainly expecting that'll be the case. And I was beforehand, even before we heard that Andrew Harris was out for this game. I'm with Marsh. I mean, I think Kenny Lawler's set up for a great season. I think Rasheed Bailey will be impactful, and I really love Nick Dembski and what he'll be able to do. We saw Dembski with some big plays in the playoffs once Collaros was the quarterback, Remis, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. In fact, I think some of these young Canadians, Dembski in particular, and a couple of hometown guys, Brady Oliveira, have an incredible opportunity right off the bat beginning tomorrow night to show Coach Mike O'Shea that they are ready for prime time.
Yeah, and if you're playing fantasy, here's our DraftKings. We can throw this up here. I'll just go Winnipeg. We do have, Augustine Oliveira, pretty cheap price, $5,400. We got the Bombers receivers. Cam Meredith, they have, a lot of people asking about Cam Meredith. They came out with a depth chart today. Just to clarify, Harris and Adams are out. A lot of people saying, what happened to Cam Meredith? And we're like, well, he got hurt. He's on the practice roster. So we're still waiting for him. But there's Dembski, $5,800. And they like to, throw him the short routes. He can go deep. He can, make things happen in the backfield. And there's Kenny Lawler too. He was pretty good last year. So there's the Bombers receivers there on the DraftKings, and we're big fans of the CFL fantasy. I'm looking forward to pouring over some lines if they ever come out and making my lineups tonight.
All right, I want to talk about old clothing and old shirts in a moment to finish up the program. But Remis, before we do that, let's get to our picks for Assiniboia Downs tonight. Did you have any luck last evening after a fun night at the Derby?
I did. I came out even. So I had 4 bets. I hit one of them. It was a Quinella, and I basically was even. So I was happy, but I felt like I could have done better. So I didn't lose money, so I think that's good.
Right on. Okay, let's get to some picks for tonight's races at the Downs. Do you have yours ready to go, Reem?
Yeah. Mitch in chat is upset that we're rooting his DraftKings picks. Everyone knows Bombers. Everyone knows Harris is hurt, and you go with the backup. That's the play. We're the underpriced backup. Everyone knows Mitch. We're not spoiling anything.
Yeah. I will say this, though. I think the potential for that to be a real split, I think, is very realistic. I mean, I think there's a danger in putting Johnny Augustine in because it sounds like Oliveira's the starter, but I don't think that, Oliveira's just going to walk in and get Andrew Harris reps. I think both of those guys will be in the mix quite a bit. So, again, for the value, you got to work it around. It'll be a work in progress. Week 1 of DraftKings could be extra crazy because of guys that we don't even know who all of a sudden are getting 9 or 10 targets from Mike Riley or a Bo Levi Mitchell at the end of the week.
Yeah, there's also a lot of other games. And shout out to Taylor in chat who joined our DraftKings contest. She says, I only took Oliveira because he's my friend. And that is
it might end up being a great pick.
Yeah, I mean, if he catches balls and makes some plays, gets in the end zone, 5,500 is not bad. And here, I'll give you my horse picks at the Downs. I'll start with race 3. I like Quinella, 1-6, Commander Divot, and Bacoli. That's a finish first, second in any order. I like race 5. I am taking a Triactor box, finish first, second, third, any order. A $1 Triactor box. It's a $6 bet total. 1, 3, and 6. Backstreet's back, and Call the Cops, who we've bet on before. I got to ride with Backstreet's back, Huss. Call the Cops, of course, and Peb. I don't know what Peb is, but maybe it's an initial, maybe it's a short for something. Either way, we need to get Backstreet's back, and one of those with a name like that. race 6. I've also bet on that horse before, and it hasn't paid off, but doesn't matter. Going back to the well. 4-7 Quinella on race 6. So that's Anawara and West Princess. Finish first, second, any order. And finally, finishing off race 7. This is a name, Media Mendacity to win. I'm going with that one to win. So those are my picks. They're all $5 bets. Although, sorry, 2 of them are 5, and I got a $4 win and a $6 box. So all 20 total.
I'm going to mix this up between, race number 1 has one horse, Melisandre, that has won 7 races in a row, looking at the program, and they are 1-5. So essentially, like, your $2 win bet is going to pay you like $2.30 or something like that. So we're just going to stay away from that race. I'm going to go to number 2. This is one of those really wide open races with horses that haven't gone very much. It seems like this Diamond Digger is the favorite at 2-5, but I'm going to go with Mean Money. We'll go to number 1, Mean Money to win. In race number 3, we're going to put a little number on Wit Loves Tacos, another one of those Wit horses. It's booked at 10-1, but is coming off of first place in its last race, second in the one before. So we'll go with that as a win, and we'll make it maybe a little bit bigger wager on a 4-5 Quinella with Wit Loves Tacos and Triple Live. Skipping race 4 because it's a complete crapshoot with no real information on the program. We get to number 5. Now, you were talking Backstreet's Back. I'm going to not fade Backstreet's Back, but I'm just going to not go with him. I'm going to take Peb and Call the Cops, number 3 and number 6, for a Quinella in race number 5. And then finishing it up in race number 6, we're going to put a win bet on number 3, the Camano Comet. And I know what you were 137, I think, on this one, or maybe that was a different one.
It was 136, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to put in West Princess, number 7, along with 3 for a Quinella. You can play along with us and bet, the races around the world every day at hpibet.com. We'll continue the duel at the Derby. I need a big one. I may even need to add in a triactor or something like that, a long shot triactor on one of these races to try and catch a big one. Although I am feeling pretty good after a nice day to get back in the win column at the Derby with Uncharacteristic, who had the big upset win.
Yeah, that was a nice call by you, tweeting that one out before the Derby, so hopefully people tailed you. I know some people were giving you a Barry Horowitz pat on the back. I want to give a shout-out to Albane Bell in chat, who says, now I have that awful Backstreet Boys in my head. I think that's a typo. I think he meant awesome. I think, over 20 years later, you can appreciate the greatness of BSB. I will say that. Maybe at the time I was a young kid and thought this stupid boy band music, but I think you gotta respect the albums sold and the screaming crowds. It's something else.
They still have it, and they've still got a massive audience. Their audience is a little older right now. I won't classify them as anything. Won't get myself in trouble, but let's just say that there was a lot of women in town that were still fired up when the Backstreet Boys were coming to town. Hey, a quick shout out to John H. And John was making us all jealous by saying he was listening to WST yesterday on the dock at Falcon Lake. He was jokingly asking if Little Brown Jug would deliver to Falcon Lake. They actually are out all over the province, and they've got a great schedule. Check them out on Instagram or their website for the events. But John just tweeted he found Little Brown Jugs at the lumber store in Falcon Lake. The day is saved. Sounds like one hell of a lumber store they've got in Falcon Lake. It's got to be one of the best trips to the lumber store anyone's ever had. Usually you're picking up a bunch of stuff to do a bunch of work that you're probably not looking forward to. Little did we know they've got Little Brown Jug at the lumber store in Falcon Lake. What an expert tip from John into the chat.
Yeah, pick up a couple 2x4s, the wood and the case of beer. So you can do a 2-for-1 at the lumber store there. That's pretty awesome.
So you asked me beforehand. I will ask you this. What is the oldest T-shirt you have? And maybe you can ask why you asked me to begin with. Because I've got some takes.
I got to give you the backstory because we were talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois, the number changes, and people were complaining. I was like, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool to have a number. Like I said, I have a jersey of Felix Hernandez. It was from his rookie season where he wore number 59 and then changed to number 34 after that. And I was like, Felix Hernandez, like his rookie year must have been like, I think it was 2005 or 2006, and I still have that T-shirt. That's like a 15-year-old T-shirt. And I was like, well, I'm getting kind of old now, and I have T-shirts that are coming up on like 20 years old. And I was like, Huss, what's the oldest T-shirt in your drawer? Like, how old are we talking? And,
I'm terrible, and I've been much better over the last couple years of throwing shit out. But for a long time, I would do laundry. I would stick it all in a drawer or have it folded. And then I would stay with my same rotation of like 4 or 5 things that I wore nonstop. I would never touch it. But when it comes to t-shirts, you asked the question, there are 2 that comes to mind. And I don't know if Greg Hasbeek from Royal Sports is with us right now or if he's going to listen later. But I have a t-shirt that I have worn at least once on Winnipeg Sports Talk. It is a Royal Sports shirt. It's a long sleeve navy blue t-shirt, but it was very well made. Like it was a thicker tee that has, it's kind of like a takeoff of the NBA logo, but it's Royal Sports of a guy skateboarding in the middle. And I've worn it a few times. It's just great. If you don't want to have a hoodie, but you want to have a longer sleeve tee, it's just great. It's been in the rotation for a while. It's been brought back a few times after being forgotten that it was washed and stuck in a pile for a long time. But Greg asked me, he said, where the heck did you get that shirt? I'm like, I don't know, dude. I got it from you like 20 years ago, at least. He's like, that shirt, like Royal Sports has been around for over 35 years. And that shirt, I believe, is a logo they were using in sort of the first 10 years or so of the event. So that could be, it's for sure a 20-year-old shirt, probably late 90s. And he was stunned that it is still around. But again, a good quality shirt could last for a long time. I've got one other t-shirt that I still have that I will wear under a hoodie or whatnot. It is a Houston Texans t-shirt. And you might ask, Hustler, you're a Chiefs fan. How in the world do you have a Houston Texans shirt? I was in Houston with the Moose for the playoffs in, man, I don't know. This would be the Jimmy Roy year. So I want to say 98, I think. And the Texans had just gotten their franchise. And there was a lot of excitement that they knew the name and the merchandise had just come out. So I bought a t-shirt and a hat. The hat never made it, but I still have that Texans shirt. It's starting to get a few holes or whatever. It's not quite made as well as the Royal one, but I still laugh that that thing has lasted. The shirt itself, Remis, is older than the organization is as far as they've been on the field.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I've been thinking about this lately because I have this Felix Hernandez jersey that's outlasted his career, of over 15 years. And the shirt's kind of disintegrating. And I'm like, what's the oldest t-shirt I have? I think I have some concert t-shirts from the early 2000s, but I don't know if I have anything from the 90s.
Now, did this come up because you were getting a gentle nudge to maybe get rid of said Felix Hernandez jersey?
No.
Or is there a time we need to, it's time to do, what do they call it?
Purge?
Well, purging, yes. I guess I guess purge is
declutter. Is that
declutter? Okay, yeah.
My wife's always bugging me to throw stuff out. I hate throwing stuff out. I'm a big hoarder, not to the point where it's like a problem.
No,
borderline.
Not going to end up on that TV show, which is wild. I've only seen that a couple times. But you're like, oh my god, how do those people? Like, I hope those people get paid a bunch of money to go on that show. Or either they actually get everything done and taken care of, because man, that's a very disappointing way to be shown on a national television audience. I'll say that much.
I would hope. Yeah, no, I don't have anything that crazy. I had to go. I think that's what everyone did over the last year when you couldn't do anything. I think we took some time. I think in December to instead of going out of town, we cleaned up our basement. So.
Here, you know what? Yeah. Hey, hold on a second, Remo. Give a hot take or two. Just handle the chat. Mark Shark Mifley has said you got to tweet a pic of that Royal shirt. I'll do one better.
All right.
I think I can grab it right now. The Texans one for sure. I will be back in one moment. We'll finish off the show with a bit of show and tell on WST.
What do you mean? You think I can quit anytime? What does that mean? But I do want to say thank you, everyone, for coming to the chat. If you want to follow us on the social medias, it's in the description. Could use a couple more. Instagram, been more active on there, closing in. Trying to get to 1,000 follows on Facebook. Twitter's where the most active, and I don't know if Hustlers told people like the video, helps us with the YouTube algorithm. And hit that sub button. We hit the big 5K. But yeah, show and tell. If we're doing show and tell here. I do have this. What do I got here? I was cleaning out some boxes. I found this Austin Powers doll, crushed velvet suit with the little fluffy thing here. Nice little Austin Powers. I think he used to talk, but that's my item for show and tell. Hustler's gonna bring his 20-year-old T-shirt. And reminder, we do have the Winnipeg Sports Talk store. I do have a new item added to it. I'll show it off here. I got to add it. I got to give Hustler some of these for the Bomber game, but we do have the official Winnipeg Sports Talk koozie. So stay tuned for those. This is the new show and tell. So I know Hustler's going to be rocking these at the Bomber. Maybe we'll have some to give away as well. But I was pretty excited about these. So there we go. That's my show and tell. I hope I did okay.
Nicely done. Yes, of course, hit the store for our link. If you haven't already picked up one of the shirts or hoodies, please do. Hope to get those hats in the next week or two as well. But I'm loving the koozies, and I promise I'll grab a handful, like a dozen or some, and I will have them on me. And if you see me in and around the stadium tomorrow, holler at me. If you're one of the Winnipeg, just ask me for a koozie. We'll know the people that have been listening to the show. And if I have one, I'll give them to you. It'll be great. All right, here we go. Here is the Royal shirt. As I mentioned, long sleeve, high quality. Yes, the fruit of the loom, heavy cotton. That's how these things last, the way it is. But yeah, there it is. Royal Sports. There's one small hole that is developed right here. But again, I can handle it. So there you go. This one, probably 20 plus years. This is the original Houston Texans shirt in Houston before it all happened. This one now, you can tell this one's old. Now it's getting in there. But again, fine shirt to wear underneath a hoodie. And then I just did find, this is another one of my oldest favorites. I don't think this is quite as old as that one, but if I'm ever in the States and I see a Hustler store, I'll pop in there. Not to buy any toys or anything, but they do have great merch. And this one from the Hustler store in St. Louis. Oh, one of my favorites. You know what they say? Hustler, hardcore since '74.
What kind of items do they have in that store? I don't want to know. I don't even know if I'd want to touch anything in there.
You know what you should do? Get on the website and you can check it out, and maybe you can start shopping in advance for Valentine's Day next year for for something to spice up the 14th, or maybe every day of the calendar year. I mean, trust me, they've got all sorts of things.
I do need to go back to St. Louis. The one store I wanted to check out there was the Tums store. I don't know if you knew, but the Tums factory is in St. Louis. Big fan of that brand.
Yeah, you always were a big Tums guy.
Big Tums guy.
Trust me, from working with Remis, now I absolutely know why. Keep the Tums intake going.
oh my God.
Yeah, the royalty is on Fuego. Ken, LOL, the Hustler shirt. Yeah, I have a few of those guys. Oh. And Hus, looks like you have a moth problem. Better call Poulins. That's just 20 years of being washed. I mean, at a certain point, these things disintegrate. I can't believe the Texans shirt is still there because it's more of a regular shirt. But man, those heavy cotton, fruit of the looms, as I said, living proof. The Royal long sleeve tee. Wow, what a way to end the show.
Yeah, what a way. So that wasn't quite an unboxing, Joey, but was definitely showing some show and tell store.
Yes, and you can Remis, you can go to the website in incognito mode. There are Hustler stores throughout throughout the States. I mean, some of them are like, there's like Hustler clubs, but these are like stores. And I mean, I don't want to say they're sex stores, but they kind of are. I mean, I think they've got like departments where, like, Remis, if you need a new ball gag, for instance, I'm sure you can pick one up there.
Exactly.
But anyways, a lot of neat stuff. And I think there's a lot of like, I always wondered this, dancers, exotic dancers, where they pick up their merch. I mean, like, where do you get those shoes with the 8-inch platforms, like with the goldfish swimming in the bottom of them? Or where do you get some of the incredible, like some of the outfits are almost like pro wrestling gear. I mean, they're that extravagant. So I think they've got some of those things. I just usually went in there for a t-shirt or a hoodie and some interesting stuff. But
all right. Hus wants to make it very clear that you only went in there for a t-shirt and a hoodie. Only. Yeah, and we should probably... And everyone in chat is like, what the hell's going on? What the hell's going on here?
We're just delirious getting ready for tomorrow's Bomber game. Yeah. And everyone, if you haven't been to the ballpark, head out to the Goldeyes tonight. Speaking of shirts, Someone thought that this was Flames last night at the game. And someone again, folks, this is not Flames. This is the Bacon jersey, which was immortalized by my perfect strike throwing out the first pitch at Bacon Night a few years ago with a bunch of my buddies heckling me mercifully behind, expecting me to screw up. And I put it right in the glove. One of my, maybe my greatest athletic moment. Not that there's much competition for it over the course of the last 15 years or so, but it was a great night. Andrew Collier, rest of the Goldeyes staff, great job. It was amazing seeing so many familiar faces, both working there as well as fans. And I got to tell you, Reem, we will get out. We will be doing a game. We'll invite our listeners. Maybe we'll do a WST group or something over the course of the next couple of weeks once we get through this crazy week of the team being back. There it is, right there, immortalized. Thank you very much. Got a good video of that one too. That was a hell of a lot of fun. And the Bacon Night, I believe, yes, there you go, Manitoba Pork, free plug. They do a Bacon Night every year. Now, this year, I think everything's come so quickly. You're just sort of trying to get the ballpark open and get fans in the stands. But coming up next year, they'll do it again. Maybe, just maybe, I'll get to come back and do the first pitch again for that. Heck, Remo, we need to get you to do a first pitch, or maybe I could do a first pitch to you and you could try and hit it out of the park like you did in the Media Home Run Derby.
No, I'm done. It sounds like a great idea in theory. Then you have to go up in front of like a capacity crowd at Shaw Park, and you're like,
yeah,
what did I just sign up for?
And eat my heat right down the middle of the plate. Look at that form in that picture. I mean, well, I mean, it's the thing. I mean, could you imagine having, look at the delivery, look at the form,
the concentration.
I mean, yeah, well, it was actually just funny story on the way out. I was somewhat nervous, and I did have a bunch of my friends right behind the plate having a lot of fun with this and telling me I was going to screw it up and it was going to be embarrassing. And Dan Chase, who was the Goldeyes do everything guy at the time, came by and he said, "Okay, are you ready?" And I was there just kind of right on the mound, in front of the mound. And he said, "Okay, well, anytime." And I don't think that ball was in my hand a half a second. I said, "Thank you." I took it and just ripped it because I thought the more I thought about it, I mean, it's just throwing a ball, right? We've been doing that all our lives. But once you get into your own head, that's when you screw it up. So I was almost like I was turning a double play, Reem. I grabbed it and I put it right to home. It worked out great. It was a lot of fun. In all seriousness, great to be back at the ballpark. If you go tonight, send us a tweet or an Instagram at Sports Talk WPG. It's great to see it, especially if you did the food. As I mentioned, I had the pierogies and kubasau yesterday and some mini donuts. I'm gonna get a Goldeye dog a Goldie dog the next time, and maybe even. Have you had the noodle boxes when you're at the ballpark, Reem?
I may have, or my wife did. She made it. Is there a pad thai in one of those?
Yeah. Well, I believe I'm not familiar with exactly what pad thai is, but if there's like noodles and you can get chicken or something,
yeah,
I believe that is what it is. That's the Bodego's guys.
Whenever I go to a baseball game with her or a sporting event, she gets like the least traditional sporting event item out there.
Like she's one of the 3 people at the Jet game that actually buys Freshie at the Freshie spot instead of taking advantage of the no lines and grabbing 2 beers there.
Hey, there's beer. I've got a Freshie.
That's the thing. That's the most veteran move, by the way, folks. If you're ever needing to do like you're going to the bathroom and you want to quickly grab a couple and get back to the seat, if you have a Freshie around you that has beer taps, that is the spot. You will have no competition. I mean, the wraps and whatnot, which I'm sure are good.
They're great.
Just not what most people think of when they're going to the games. And I give a lot. I eat Freshies sometimes, not as much as I probably should. A good Winnipeg company, they're doing very well. But that is an underrated, if you know, especially if you've got seats in the same place all the time, you figure out the good landmarks and how to get in and out. All I can tell you is running into the game, if the anthem's going on, it's busy in a lot of places. The people standing around just looking at each other at Freshie, they will serve you 2 beers without buying Freshie, and then you'll be good to go.
I always when I was going to a lot of the Jets games for work, I would always stop in and get Freshie. Freshie, that was my go-to. You get a chicken burrito. That was my pick there. So, but no, what have we got? I remember we went to a movie theater once. We got a fruit or veggie platter. That was pretty awesome. I'm trying to think. My wife got a what you get some yogurt parfait thing in Anaheim at a Ducks game one time. And I'm trying to think what we got in Seattle I think they had some Thai food option. Really good options at T-Mobile Park. So
What is the thing, other than your wife, who's far more health conscious than either of us, on the road, what is the most memorable concession item that you have purchased? Feel free to throw in the chat. Let's change the chat. I should have never made that ball gag joke because it's completely taken over the chat.
I said I'm so close to putting ball gag on muted words or banned words list. So close. It's going to happen.
And we're not making a WST ball gag for the store, no matter how many times you ask.
I'll show you. I took a picture of it. I did a couple years ago, 2013 or 14-ish. I did a tour of baseball trips through, what do we do? Chicago, St. Louis, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Kansas City. And
I've done that exact same trip. It is the perfect ballpark trip if you live in Winnipeg.
This is the most memorable item I had on that trip. Pulling it up. There it is. I'll put it. It's a hot dog. I don't really remember what was in it, but this is the picture of it. Bacon wrapped hot dog with fried onions, mushrooms, and beans. This was in Busch Stadium in St. Louis. I remember this was absolutely incredible. So I loved this. I know in Seattle I've had some good stuff too. I've been to a couple games at T-Mobile Park now. But I think this is the one that I do remember the most. I took a picture of it, so it must have been good.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I have had a bacon wrapped dog in St. Louis, although I don't think I dressed it as well as you did yours, certainly for Instagram. The Dodger dog in LA at Chavez Ravine was amazing, but it's just a really good hot dog. It's like the Chanchot in Montreal, although those do have the toasted buns. That's what makes them special. Everyone talks about them. But maybe the strangest one that I've ever had that was delicious, and you can pick this up at Target Field, is the pork chop on a stick.
I have that here. I'll show you my picture of that. One sec.
The pork chop on a stick was awesome. They also have walleye nuggets or walleye bites, which is pickerel as well. Wrench Doozer, best food sports headline from 10 plus years ago in the Vancouver Sun. Put away your sushi and watch the game. Hey, listen, especially when you go to a ball game, there's lots of downtime. It's sometimes as much about the culinary options and what you're drinking is what is going on in the game. And there'll be some people that go tonight and only watch a couple innings and just spend the entire time eating. And I'm here for that too, if that's what they want to do it.
Well, I think that's what it's about. It's about the experience. I mean, the ball is, I don't want to say it's secondary because you're going to a baseball game, but I think a lot of these, independent ballparks, minor league. I remember I went to a AAA game in Nashville, Nashville Sounds, and the whole outfield, they had like mini golf, they had cornhole, they had pool, they had so much fun stuff you could do, at the game that, it's not just about going to the game. It's about, hanging out with your friends and sampling all the different amenities that it has.
Shawarma Khan, the Wrath of Khan is a must for concessions.
Yes.
They'll be cranking some of that out tomorrow night. There actually is some pretty cool new concessions coming in. I know the Brazen Hall's in there. I believe one of the other breweries, if I'm not mistaken, TCB potentially. And I do know Little Pizza Heaven. It's at the ballpark at the stadium as well. So there'll be some neat. The Wallaby Burger will be going. Hot dogs are $3. Beers are $5. I don't, we'll have to check the website. It's for sure before the game. Not sure if it's during the game as well. But again, you're going to want to get in there early. We'll be talking about it tomorrow as well. And hopefully see a bunch of you guys tomorrow. And again, if you remember, ask me for a koozie. I'll come locked and loaded until they are gone. And yes, to Jeff Kabilis, who was just asking, no ball gag, but how are we doing with the WST Bong gas mask? Yes, the Laramie Tunsil special. That's actually going to be of one. I don't think that'll be sold on the market. Well, maybe I'll talk to the guys over at Delta 9 and try and get working on that. It is, of course, legal now.
Here, we talked about pork chop on a stick.
There it is.
I got one once upon a time in Minneapolis. So they're a beautiful stadium. I mean, going to the Metrodome was an awful experience, and this
Oh,
was
what
I
a
had to try
dump.
this. Yeah,
What
it
a
was-
dump. Well, I did too. And you know how I knew, and you can look for this on YouTube. We can't play the clip, but there is a famous highlight of a female reporter, and I cannot remember her name. It was a Yankees Twins game. And she's standing there saying, "Oh, this is the new Target field. They've got all this great food, and I've got this pork chop on a stick." And a guy, I think he was wearing a Yankee jersey, if I'm not mistaken, reached over and just took a bite of it as she was holding it, doing the live hit, essentially leaving it the way it looks in this picture that Remis is showing right now. So that's a number one. I'm sure some of you guys will have remembered that one before. Anyways, that is a great one. Everything is better on a stick, says James Robinson. I can't disagree. So folks, if you get out to the ball game tonight, you eat something good, send us a tweet, send us an Instagram. We'll be staying on top of this. We will do a power rankings, maybe of Winnipeg concession items at some point, being the go-to guys for all those things here on the sports scene. But in the meantime, enjoy the Olympics tonight. Tomorrow, huge day. We'll find out whether this game time has changed, and therefore we don't have a conflict between the Bombers and Canada's Olympic women's soccer game. But we'll be all over it tomorrow. Probably talk about both of those games, hopefully with guests tomorrow before everyone gets down to IG Field. As always, a big thanks to our sponsors, Not AutoCorp, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Breezy Bend, Assiniboia Downs, Aikens Lake, Paramount Services Limited, Royal Sports, and the Nick and Nikki DQ Group. Again, Bomber Line is up at Coolbet Canada, as is. I think we should have a lock shot partner parlay as well with boosted odds. I can't tell you what the bet is, though. Over 5 in the first 5 innings between Cleveland and Toronto tonight. Dodgers money line, and I'm taking Canada women plus a goal tomorrow. So Canada win or tie in regulation, all part of that parlay, and it's just under 4-1, but hopefully we'll get it boosted up. Remo, what are you watching tonight, or what's on the agenda this evening?
That is a good question. I usually just sit down in front of the TV, whatever the Olympics brings. I think we'll do that. I'll have to work on some other stuff. But I guess we just sit down and put on the switch between CBC and NBC. And,
well, get a good sleep tonight, everybody. Big game tomorrow. And again, there is a double header tomorrow. If you really want to make the most of the day, if you've got it off, noon, Goldeyes downtown, and then Bombers and Ticats kicking off the CFL season a little later on tomorrow night at IG Field. Oh, Mitch was mentioning we've got the 4x100 men's qualifying tomorrow. That will be excellent. And apparently getting rumors that we may actually have rain in Winnipeg right now, which is something we have not had a lot of for a very long time. So I'm going to step outside, see if that is real. Remis is going to get the podcast up. Once again, everyone, this has been a lot of fun today. Marshall Ferguson was phenomenal. Make sure you're following him and check out their site at Canadian Football Perspective. And big thanks to our buddy Joe Yerdon with the latest on the Eichel situation in Buffalo. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for making Winnipeg Sports Talk a part of your day. We'll catch you tomorrow, getting ready for the return of the Big Blue at IG Field. Have a great night.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.